The Last of Us America, a world that exists in both the game and the television show, a version of the United States reshaped by collapse, infection, and survival. This is not a story about the end of the world in one great flash of light, but about the slow, irreversible unraveling of everything familiar. A world where society didn't vanish in an instant, it rotted from the inside out until only fragments were left behind. It all begins in 2003, when something seemingly harmless becomes the key to humanity's downfall. A mutated strain of the cordyceps fungus, something that in the real world infects ants, crosses into humans through a tainted food supply. Flour, sugar, everyday staples. The infection spreads invisibly at first, quietly. It doesn't kill its hosts, it controls them. Cordyceps hijacks the human brain, erasing identity, turning people into violent, mindless carriers. Once the symptoms start, there is no cure, no treatment, just transformation. By the time the world understands what's happening, it's already too late. Civilization collapses in days, cities burn, governments fall, borders dissolve, people turn on each other in fear, panic, desperation. Roads become escape routes, homes become battlegrounds. The age of humanity, as it once was, ends almost overnight. What emerges is not peace or resilience. It's something else, something darker. In the aftermath, the United States becomes a ghost of itself. The vast infrastructure of highways, airports, power lines, and cities remains, but it no longer serves people, it serves survival. Ruins of once bustling towns stand covered in vines and rust. The skeletons of skyscrapers loom over empty streets. Wildlife reclaims suburbs. Nature creeps back into places it had long been pushed away from. Civilization is not gone, but it has been humbled, beaten into silence. In place of the old government, a new regime rises from the ashes. FEDRA, the Federal Disaster Response Agency, becomes the controlling force in what's left of organized society. They establish quarantine zones, walled cities built from scrap and cement, guarded with rifles and fear. These zones become the last bastions of what used to be normal life: electricity, running water, rations, but also curfews, military checkpoints, and executions for disobedience. Safety comes at the cost of freedom. Outside the zones, the world is wild. Roads are broken, bridges are crumbling, small towns lie abandoned, their windows shattered, their walls tagged with warnings. The infected roam freely here. Not zombies, not corpses, but something worse, living bodies controlled by a parasitic mind. Some move erratically, still vaguely human. Others, like the clickers, are far gone, blind but deadly, their skulls overgrown with fungal plates. And deeper still, more grotesque forms evolve, growing with time into monstrous shadows of the humans they once were. But the infected aren't the only danger. Human beings, left unchecked by law or order, become desperate and cruel. Some band together into raider groups, attacking travelers, scavenging supplies, leaving behind mutilated bodies as warnings. Others form isolated communities with their own rules, their own moral codes, some peaceful, others cult-like and terrifying. Trust becomes a rare commodity. Even those who mean well live with their weapons close at hand. In this world, survival comes before kindness. Paranoia replaces hospitality. There are resistance movements too. The most well-known is the Fireflies, a decentralized militant group opposed to Fedra's rule. They want to restore democratic rule, but their methods blur the lines between liberation and terrorism. They fight with bombs and ambushes. They smuggle medicine, weapons, people. To some they are freedom fighters, to others they are dangerous idealists. In a world like this, morality is a broken compass. What defines The Last of Us America is not just the ruins, not just the violence, but the emotional cost of survival. It is a world where love is dangerous, where loss is constant, where the past is something people carry like a wound. Memories are a kind of currency, stories of how things used to be, of people who are no longer here, of dreams that were buried under the weight of reality. Children born after the outbreak grow up without knowing what the world used to be. They don't know what a movie theater is. They've never eaten in a restaurant, never ridden in a car without fear, never opened a refrigerator without checking for mold and rats. Their playgrounds are rusted-out buses, broken escalators, rooftops guarded by snipers. Their lullabies are the distant howls of infected in the dark. There's still beauty in this world, but it's a fragile kind of beauty. Sunlight filtering through shattered glass, a deer walking through an abandoned mall, a quiet moment by a lake where everything feels almost normal, until it isn't. This is a world where small acts of humanity feel enormous. A shared meal, a joke, a moment of trust. In the silence between gunshots and screams, people still try to remember what it meant to be human. The Last of Us America is not just post-apocalyptic, it is personal. It is about individuals trying to navigate a world that punishes hope. It's about how far people will go for those they love, what they are willing to do, and what they are willing to lose. It's about the tension between survival and sacrifice, between right and wrong, when every decision could mean death. The infected may be the face of the apocalypse, but the real story is what it reveals about people. Some rise, some fall, some become monsters without ever being infected, and through it all, the land itself remains. Broken highways, flooded basements, abandoned cities, and the echo of a time when everything made sense. The Fallout wasteland exists in the world of Fallout, a land where civilization has been reduced to ruins, where the mistakes of the past have left behind a world that is broken, irradiated, and filled with dangers that never should have existed. Once this was a thriving society, a world of towering cities, technological wonders, and limitless ambition. But all of that ended in fire. The bombs fell, and in an instant, everything changed. Now all that remains is a wasteland, a vast and unforgiving expanse, where survival is never guaranteed, where the remnants of the old world linger as both a warning and a temptation. The landscape is scarred, covered in crumbling buildings, rusted cars, frozen in time, shattered highways that lead to nowhere. Radiation lingers in the air, in the soil, in the very bones of the earth. Some places are too toxic for anything to live, forever poisoned by the war that ended the old world. Others have become home to those who refuse to die, who have adapted to the wasteland's cruelty, who have learned how to navigate a world where danger is around every corner. Scattered across the wasteland are settlements, pockets of humanity that have managed to carve out an existence among the ruins. Some are small, nothing more than a few buildings patched together with scrap, their people barely surviving on what little they can scavenge. Others have grown into thriving hubs of trade and power, built on the foundations of the old world, trying to reclaim some piece of what was lost. But even the largest settlements are fragile, constantly threatened by raiders, mutants, and the unforgiving nature of the wasteland itself. Violence is a way of life. Raiders roam the land, taking what they want, leaving destruction in their wake. They have no loyalty, no higher purpose, only the need to dominate, to survive by any means necessary. They are a reminder that in a world without laws, strength is the only thing that matters. The weak are prey, the strong take what they can, and morality is a luxury that few can afford. Radiation has twisted both the land and the creatures that inhabit it. Animals that once roamed freely have been mutated beyond recognition, their bodies warped into monstrous forms, giant insects, hulking beasts, and things that should not exist, stalk the wasteland, hunting anything that moves. Some of the creatures that roam the ruins were once human, but exposure to radiation has turned them into something else something mindless, something relentless. The old world is not entirely gone. Ruins of once great cities still stand, their towers cracked and crumbling, their streets littered with the skeletons of a civilization that thought itself indestructible. Some wander these ruins, searching for supplies, for weapons, for anything of value that might help them survive another day. Others search for something more, secrets, lost knowledge, answers hidden in the rubble. The technology of the past still exists, buried beneath the ashes, waiting to be found, waiting to be used, waiting to be understood. Among the survivors are those who have taken it upon themselves to rebuild. Some believe that humanity can rise again, that the wasteland can be tamed, that the mistakes of the past do not have to define the future. They build, they organize, they try to create something better, but the wasteland does not care for their dreams. For every settlement that flourishes, another is burned to the ground. For every step forward, the wasteland pushes back. Others do not seek to rebuild, but to control. Warlords, factions, remnants of old governments, all fight to impose their will upon the wasteland. Some claim to offer protection, others demand obedience. The strongest carve out territories, ruling through fear, enforcing their own twisted versions of order. Some seek to restore the old world, clinging to the ideals of a civilization that no longer exists. Others embrace the chaos, seeing the wasteland not as a curse, but as an opportunity. Technology from before the war still exists, hidden away in bunkers, buried beneath the ruins, locked behind doors that have not been opened in centuries. Some seek these places for their treasures, advanced weapons, medical supplies, machines that could tip the balance of power. Others seek them for answers, for an understanding of what happened, of how the world fell apart, of whether anything can be salvaged from the wreckage. But these remnants of the past are not always abandoned. Some are guarded, protected by those who still cling to the old ways, who see the past not as something to be mourned, but as something to be reclaimed. Even among the chaos, there are those who wander, those who do not belong to any faction, who owe allegiance to no one. They travel the wasteland alone, or in small groups, scavengers, traders, mercenaries, explorers. Some seek fortune, others seek purpose. Some are running from something, others are searching for something they cannot name. They are the ones who see the wasteland for what it is, not just a graveyard, but a place where anything is possible. The wasteland does not care who you are. It does not care where you came from, what you believe, what you hope for. It is unforgiving, merciless, unrelenting. It is a place where survival is a battle fought every day, where trust is dangerous, where hope is a weakness that can get you killed. But it is also a place of opportunity, of discovery, of second chances. For those who are strong enough, smart enough, or lucky enough, it is a place where legends are made. The world before the war is gone, but its echoes remain. Some cling to the past, hoping to restore what was lost. Others embrace the future, whatever shape it may take. The wasteland is not just a place, it is a test, a proving ground, a crucible, where only the strongest survive. It is a reminder that no matter how much humanity destroys itself, it will always find a way to continue. The wasteland does not promise comfort, it does not offer certainty. It is harsh, it is cruel, it is filled with horrors beyond imagining. But for those who can endure it, for those who can navigate its dangers, for those who refuse to give in, it is also something else. It is freedom. 28 days later's rage virus, apocalypse. A world born from a single mistake. A world that didn't crumble over decades or collapse in slow decay, but one that was torn apart in an instant. It exists within the universe of the film 28 Days Later, a vision of post-apocalyptic Britain that is as fast as it is brutal, as quiet as it is horrifying. There are no nuclear bombs, no rising sea levels, no alien invasions, just a virus that doesn't kill, a virus that doesn't kill, a virus that doesn't wait, A virus that turns the infected into something worse than dead, something filled with rage. It starts with good intentions. A group of animal rights activists breaks into a laboratory, planning to free chimpanzees held for experimentation. They find the animals restrained and watching violent footage, riots, war, suffering. When the activists demand the chimps be released, a scientist warns them not to. He tells them the animals are infected with something dangerous, something called rage. But it's too late. One cage is opened, one chimp attacks, and just like that, the virus is loose. The rage virus is not slow. It doesn't incubate over weeks or days. Infection happens within seconds. A drop of blood, a splash of saliva, and everything changes. It doesn't make people sick in the traditional sense. It rewires the brain in an instant. All higher function disappears. What remains is primal fury, endless, unstoppable violence. The infected don't stumble or moan. They sprint, they scream, they chase. They are not undead. They are still alive, but with every trace of humanity erased. Within hours, the virus spreads through London. Within days, all of Britain. Cities fall not to collapse, but to chaos. Emergency broadcasts fail. Governments vanish. Soldiers abandon their posts. There is no containment. There is no cure. Only fear. When the film begins, it's 28 days later. The story picks up in a hospital. A man named Jim wakes from a coma to find the world empty. Streets are deserted. Buildings are silent. London, once filled with life, is a graveyard. Posters cling to walls warning of infection. Cars are abandoned mid-road. Blood stains the walls of churches and homes. No answers, no explanations, just silence. And then, it returns. Not slowly, not predictably, but all at once. The infected are still there, still watching, still waiting. When they appear, it's explosive, running, snarling, attacking with inhuman speed, not for food, not for dominance, just to destroy. The infected never rest. They do not stalk. They charge. There is no negotiation, no hesitation, and the moment one catches you, you don't die. You become one of them. The collapse of society is near total. Those who remain are not rebuilding. They are surviving, scavenging for food, moving in small groups, sleeping in shifts, listening for the sound of footsteps or screams, hoping the infection doesn't find them. Hope itself is rare. Community is almost non-existent, but humans are not the only threat. As the days wear on, it becomes clear that even without infection, people are dangerous. In a world with no rules, no laws, the strong prey on the weak. Armed survivors form their own enclaves. Some offer protection, others offer something worse. One of the most haunting features of this world is the rapid decay of normalcy. The apocalypse doesn't feel distant, it feels fresh. The lights have only just gone out. The vending machines are still stocked, the bodies are still warm, but there is no one left to maintain anything. The world is deteriorating, in real time. Grass grows through cracks in the pavement, houses are overgrown. Nature begins to reclaim the streets, but not fast enough to hide what happened there. The rage virus apocalypse is not about survival in the long term. It's about survival today. Right now, this hour, every moment is a calculation. Where to run, when to rest, who to trust. There is no safety, only the illusion of it. Every noise might be your last. Every corner could be hiding something that wants to tear you apart. People don't travel without purpose. They move fast, quietly, always alert. The infected are terrifying, not just because of what they are, but because of what they represent. They are not monsters from another world. They are us, twisted by a virus that strips away conscience and leaves behind nothing but fury. They don't feed. They don't communicate. They don't strategize, but they don't need to. Their strength is their simplicity. They are pure reaction. They do not get tired. They do not feel fear. They are the embodiment of unstoppable violence. Over time, a new kind of silence settles over the country. The infected begin to die off, not because they were cured or defeated, but because their bodies cannot sustain the pace. They starve. They rot. The ones that remain are even more dangerous, desperate, thin, driven only by the last sparks of rage left inside them. But even as the infection wanes, the damage is done. The infrastructure is gone. Families are gone. The government, the military, the institutions that once gave people direction and purpose, they're dust. Those who survived the outbreak must now decide what comes next. Rebuild, migrate, surrender. This world forces everyone to confront a single question. What would you become when the structure around you collapses? When the threat is not an alien invasion or a rising tide, but your neighbor, your friend, your family member, now filled with something that makes them unrecognizable. The apocalypse of 28 days later is not just about the infected, it's about the thin line between civilization and chaos, about how fast everything can fall apart when fear takes over, about how fragile our systems really are, and how quickly the polite world we build can dissolve into panic, violence, and survival. It's a world where the greatest danger isn't always the virus. Sometimes, it's the people who are left behind. The Quiet Place Earth. A world introduced through the film. A quiet place where the apocalypse doesn't come with fire or infection, but with silence. A world where the rules of survival are simple but absolute. Make no sound, or you die. This is a world transformed not just by disaster, but by the absence of noise, by the understanding that even a whisper, even a footstep, can mean instant death. It begins with a crash from the stars. The exact origin is never explained, but what arrives on Earth is unmistakable. Creatures, not intelligent invaders, not conquerors, but something more primal. They are blind, heavily armored, fast beyond comprehension. They hunt with one sense alone, sound. Their hearing is impossibly sharp. They don't stalk or wait, they react. The moment they hear a sound, they are there, moving with lethal precision. And once they find you, there is no escape. Humanity doesn't stand a chance. In the opening days, the creatures tear through cities, towns, and rural areas alike. Guns are useless, walls are paper, noise is everywhere. Within weeks, perhaps even days, the majority of the population is gone. Governments fall, broadcasts go silent. The world becomes a graveyard of voices that no one dares to use anymore. Those who survive do so by adapting quickly. Speech is abandoned, technology is minimized. Entire lives are rebuilt around the art of silence. People walk barefoot. Homes are filled with soft surfaces. Sand paths are laid across walkways to muffle steps. Communication becomes a mix of gestures and sign language. Every movement deliberate, every breath controlled. The world is quieter than it's ever been, but that quiet is laced with terror. What makes the Quiet Place Earth unique among post-apocalyptic settings is how much it hinges on restraint. Most end-of-the-world scenarios are loud, filled with chaos, screaming, explosions, and conflict. But here, the fear is in the stillness. It's not about what's seen, it's about what's heard. A dropped toy, a cough, a slip on the floor. These are not minor mistakes. They are death sentences. Children grow up never learning to speak. Babies are born into silence, with parents praying they won't cry. Music becomes a thing of the past. Conversations, laughter, arguments, those things that make us human, are dangerous luxuries. Families like the one we follow in the story, live on isolated farms, using visual alarms instead of sound. devising backup plans for every possibility. It's not enough to avoid danger. You must anticipate it. The creatures themselves are perfect hunters. Their bodies are built for killing. Long limbs, armored plating, an inner ear structure that unfolds like a weapon. They are not cunning or malevolent. They are instinct. They respond to sound, like a flame responds to oxygen. Their arrival is not signaled by warning or delay. One noise is enough to summon them from miles away. They rip through barriers. They crush metal. They destroy without hesitation. Yet, despite their violence, these creatures aren't the only force reshaping the world. Silence itself becomes a kind of tyrant. It changes how people live, think, and connect. There's no place for community anymore. No gatherings, no meetings, no places of worship or learning. People stay hidden. They rarely travel. The roads are empty. The towns are overgrown. Nature continues its quiet work, reclaiming buildings and cars, while the few remaining humans hide in fear. What's so striking about the quiet place Earth is how it exposes the emotional cost of silence, not just the risk of death, but the absence of comfort. In this world, grief must be silent, joy must be hidden. There's no yelling for help, no calling out in desperation. Everything is internalized. Everything is contained. The loudest thing left is the tension, the constant hum of anxiety that sits under every moment. It's in the breath held too long, the hand that hovers over a noisy object, the glance that says everything. A voice no longer can, but humans adapt. They always do. In pockets of this ruined world, survivors find ways to push back. Some discover weaknesses in the creatures. Others build soundproof shelters, grow food in silence, raise families under impossible conditions. The world may have fallen, but people haven't entirely given up. They find meaning in small victories, a successful harvest, a safe night, a new life. Even in silence, they find ways to live. The quiet place Earth doesn't focus on civilization being rebuilt with grand gestures or sweeping alliances. It's about the intimacy of survival, about how one family, one household, one individual can preserve something of what came before, a memory, a connection, a sense of purpose. It's not a world full of fire and conflict. It's one of stillness and pressure, and that makes every decision feel enormous. There's no background noise to drown out the stakes. One of the most devastating aspects of this world is how isolating it is. Without speech, people become locked inside their own minds. Without noise, fear becomes internalized. Without community, hope begins to wither. The world still turns, the seasons still change, but time feels suspended. Every day is the same cycle. Quiet movements, silent meals, watchfulness. The past becomes something you try not to think about. The future becomes something you try not to hope for. And yet, there is something strangely beautiful about this world. The absence of sound reveals things most people never notice. The rustling of wind in the grass, the soft splash of a fish in the water, the rhythm of breath. In this silence, the world itself speaks more clearly. It forces people to listen, not with their ears, but with their eyes, their hearts, their intuition. The quiet place Earth asks a haunting question. What would be left of us if we had to erase the noise of our lives? Not just the literal sounds, but the distractions, the chatter, the constant movement. What remains when communication becomes dangerous and every moment is weighed against the risk of being heard? It's not just a post-apocalyptic world, it's a world redefined by the limits of expression, and in that silence, it reveals a deeper truth. Sometimes, survival means more than staying alive. Sometimes, it means remembering who we are, even when we can't say it out loud. The leftovers post-disappearance society. A world not destroyed by war or disease, not swallowed by nature or crushed by monsters. It's the world of the leftovers, a television show that begins not with fire and ruin, but with silence and confusion. A world still standing, still recognizable, but forever changed by a single, inexplicable event. On October 14th, without warning, without reason, 2% of the world's population disappears. 2% sounds small, but when that 2% is sudden, when it includes babies from cribs, drivers from moving cars, entire families from dinner tables, it becomes something else entirely. A quiet apocalypse, not one of rubble, but of absence, not a world ending, but a world unraveling. There's no pattern, no message, no explanation. Scientists cannot find a cause. Religions offer guesses. Conspiracy theories flood every corner of the internet, but no one knows what happened, and no one can undo it. Those who vanished are simply gone. No bodies, no clues, no goodbyes. The world doesn't collapse into chaos. Roads still exist. Power grids still hum. Cities don't burn. But something inside people breaks. The disappearance, as it comes to be known, leaves behind an emotional crater. Every survivor becomes haunted, not just by who they lost, but by the randomness of it. Why did they remain? What made them worthy to stay behind? Or was it the opposite? Were they the ones left because they weren't chosen? Society continues, technically. Governments remain. Schools open. Businesses try to function. But the air is heavier. There's a hollowness to daily life, a feeling that everything is fragile, that nothing really matters anymore. The structure of the world is still intact, but the meaning beneath it has cracked. People cope in different ways. Some cling harder to routine. Others find comfort in religion, in the idea that the disappearance was divine. Still others turn their back on everything they once believed. Some retreat into silence. Some erupt in violence. There is no single reaction to a mystery so vast and unresolved. There is only a constant undercurrent of grief, confusion, and dread. In the wake of the disappearance, new movements arise. The most prominent is the guilty remnant. They are not terrorists. Not exactly. They are not a church, though they have rituals. They are a kind of anti-society, a group that believes the world ended on October 14th, and that pretending otherwise is a lie. They dress in all white. They take a vow of silence. They smoke constantly. Their presence is unsettling. They do not speak, but they watch. They write messages on notepads. They stand outside homes. They attend memorials not to grieve, but to disrupt. Their message is clear. Nothing is the same, and nothing should be. Other groups emerge too. Some form cults around figures who claim to know why the disappearance happened. Others promise healing, or answers, or salvation. A man named Holy Wayne gains followers by claiming he can absorb people's pain with a hug. Whether it works or not almost doesn't matter. What matters is that people believe. In a world with no answers, belief becomes its own kind of truth. But most people don't join movements or cults. Most just try to keep going. Parents still raise their children. People still fall in love. Arguments still happen over groceries or bills. But every interaction is colored by a kind of mourning. Everyone is carrying something they can't let go of. Everyone is asking questions they're afraid to say out loud. The cities look the same, but memorials appear everywhere. Walls filled with names, photos, candles, empty chairs at dinner tables, school classes missing students. Life continues, but it feels off balance, like the world is walking with a limp. In Mapleton, a small suburban town where much of the story unfolds, people gather for a Heroes' Day parade to remember the departed, but there are no answers here. The ceremony feels hollow. Behind every smiling face is a question that won't go away. What do we do now? Even the people who didn't lose anyone feel it. Survivors' guilt infects those who remained untouched. It wasn't just the missing that were changed. It was everyone. The world feels unreliable, dreamlike. The past can't be trusted. The future can't be planned. If something like the disappearance can happen once, what's to stop it from happening again? The psychological toll is enormous. Relationships crumble under the weight of unresolved grief. Some people fake new identities, flee their old lives, try to start over. Others descend into depression, addiction, or rage. Children struggle to understand why their parents cry in silence. Teenagers throw parties in abandoned homes, chasing oblivion to forget a reality they never asked for. No one escapes unscathed. Law enforcement tries to maintain order, but even the police are not immune to the ache of loss. Officers are expected to enforce laws in a world where the greatest mystery went unpunished and unexplained. Some grow numb, others crack. Faith in institutions begins to erode, not with riots or revolutions, but with quiet resignation. Over time, people stop talking about October 14th, not because it matters less, but because there's nothing left to say. The pain is absorbed into the background, like a constant hum. Some people try to move on, but they're never quite the same. Some pretend they've moved on, but they haven't, and some refuse to move on at all. The Leftovers post-disappearance society is not a typical apocalypse. There are no monsters in the streets, no ash in the sky. The danger is invisible. It's inside people, the loneliness, the fear, the helplessness, the question of why, the deeper question of what now. What makes this world so haunting is how close it feels. There is no distance between the audience and the characters. This isn't another planet, or a future gone wrong. It's our world one moment after everything we take for granted was proven to be fragile. It shows how thin the line is between ordinary life and existential crisis. And still, even in this heavy grieving world, people try to love. They try to heal. They try to forgive. Some succeed, many fail. But the effort matters. The small moments matter. A quiet meal, a shared glance, a single breath of peace. In the end, the Leftovers world is not about what happened. It's about what's left. The people who remain. The lives that continue. The stories that are still unfolding, even when the story that began it all has no ending. The Walking Dead's zombie-infested world, a place first brought to life through comics, then expanded into a long-running television show. It begins not with fire raining from the sky, or an alien invasion, but with silence. A man wakes up in a hospital bed, alone, confused, surrounded by death. The world hasn't just changed, it's ended. The infection has already spread, the collapse has already happened, and what's left is not chaos, it's something worse, emptiness. In The Walking Dead, there is no patient zero moment, no confirmed origin of the outbreak, no vaccine, no cure. What people know is only what they can see. The dead rise, and they don't stop. They don't groan for brains. They don't run, but they are relentless. A single bite, a scratch, even just blood in the wrong place. It's enough to end a life and begin something else, something wrong, something hungry. They're not called zombies in this world. People call them walkers, roamers, biters, geeks. Each community gives them a different name, but the rules are always the same. If they catch you, they kill you, and if you die, no matter how, no matter when, you become one of them. It's not the bite that causes transformation, it's death itself. Everyone is already infected. It's just a matter of time. What makes The Walking Dead's world so brutal is how fast it moves from survival horror to something more raw and ongoing. The walkers are a constant threat, but they're not the only one. They're the backdrop, the walking reminder of what the world used to be. But as the story continues, it's the living who become the true danger. In the early days, cities become graveyards, military outposts are overrun, emergency broadcasts go quiet, civilization folds in on itself, Survivors form loose bands, scavenging through grocery stores and gas stations, sleeping in abandoned cars, avoiding cities when they can. Silence becomes a kind of safety. Guns draw attention. Arguments can get people killed. Every sound, every light, every footstep is calculated. You learn quickly, or you die quickly. Food becomes the new currency. Water, medicine, ammunition, things that once felt abundant become rare. Trust becomes even rarer. The farther people get from the collapse, the harder it becomes to remember how to be decent. Morality bends. Lines are crossed. Decisions that would once seem unthinkable become survival instincts. As time passes, survivors begin to organize. Small communities emerge. Some are hopeful, cooperative, democratic. Others are ruled by fear, by violence, by whoever has the most weapons. Groups like the Saviors, the Whisperers, or the Governor's faction take what they want, using walkers as weapons, as tools of intimidation, as barriers. The dead become a kind of currency, too, used not just as enemies, but as armor, camouflage, leverage. The world itself becomes unrecognizable. Highways are cluttered with abandoned vehicles. Towns are overgrown. Nature reclaims everything. Grass breaks through concrete. Trees pierce through roofs. Animals roam freely, cautious of humans now. The remnants of the old world still exist. Shopping malls, police stations, playgrounds, but they are frozen in time. Echoes of a life that no longer fits. The true focus of The Walking Dead's apocalypse is what happens to people over time, not just physically, but mentally, morally, emotionally. What happens when you've killed to survive, lost people you love, seen the worst in others, and yourself? How do you keep going when every day is a battle, not just against death, but against losing your own humanity? Characters change. The man who was once a small-town sheriff becomes something else entirely. A leader, a killer, a symbol. The child who grows up in this world never learns what normal used to be. They learn to shoot before they learn to read. Love still exists, but it is fragile. Families form, break apart, reform in different shapes. Grief becomes a constant companion. Every smile comes with the knowledge that it could be the last. But this world is not without moments of beauty. Sometimes, in the middle of ruin, there are scenes of quiet. A sunrise over a broken city, a community sharing a meal, children laughing, even just for a second. These moments don't erase the horror, but they stand against it. They remind people what they're fighting for. The apocalypse in The Walking Dead is not a single event. It's a condition. It's not just about the dead. It's about the living learning how to rebuild something meaningful, even when everything around them tells them not to bother. Some try to restore governments. Others want to build safe havens, sustainable towns, places where children can play without fear. But no solution is permanent. Peace is always temporary. Something always goes wrong. The further people move from the old world, the more they begin to question what kind of new world they want to build. Is it about order, even if it means cruelty? Is it about freedom, even if it means risk? What kind of rules matter when the world itself has been stripped down to its bones? Faith is tested. People who once believed in a higher power now wonder what kind of God would let this happen. Others find strength in belief, using it to build structure, discipline, hope. Still others create their own mythologies, inventing rules and systems to make sense of the chaos. What The Walking Dead captures so well is the slow grind of the apocalypse. It doesn't rush toward an ending. It lives in the in-between, in the way people react to each other, in the choices they make when there are no good options. It's not just about monsters in the dark. It's about the question, who do you become when the world ends? And what does it take to stay human when the rules of humanity no longer apply? The walkers never stop. They don't sleep. They don't think. They are always there. But the real story is the people who have to live in their shadow. The people who carry memories of what was, dreams of what could be, and the scars of everything in between. The Walking Dead's world isn't a warning about the dead rising. It's a mirror held up to the living. It asks what we would do, not just to survive but to matter. The Planet of the Apes ruins, a world introduced through one of the most iconic science fiction films ever made, and later reimagined through reboots and sequels. It is a world that doesn't look like the end of the world at first glance. The sky is blue, oceans still move with tides, forests grow tall and thick, but then you see the details, the buildings swallowed by sand, the rusted skeletons of a long-gone civilization, the absence of human dominance, and in its place, something else, a world no longer ruled by man, but by apes. In the original Planet of the Apes film, the story begins with astronauts crashing onto an unfamiliar planet. They believe they are on some distant alien world. The land is wild, the air is breathable, but something feels wrong. The ruins they find don't make sense, and then the truth emerges slowly, piece by piece, until it hits with full weight. This isn't another planet. It's Earth, just Earth, long after the end of the human era. At the heart of this world is the reversal. Humans are no longer the apex species. They are silent, hunted, treated as animals. The rulers now are intelligent apes, organized into a complex society, complete with politics, religion, and class systems. Gorillas serve as the military, orangutans as religious and legal authorities, chimpanzees as scientists and thinkers. It is a civilization with its own history, its own myths, its own fears, and at the core of those fears lies the truth of what came before. In the rebooted films, we are shown how the world became this way. A genetically engineered virus, designed to cure Alzheimer's, is tested on apes. It works, but with unintended consequences. The apes become smarter. Their intelligence increases rapidly. At the same time, the virus proves deadly to humans. What begins as a scientific breakthrough becomes the seed of an extinction-level event. The simian flu spreads like wildfire. Governments collapse. Cities go dark. The human population is decimated. As humans fall, apes rise. The apes form their own societies in forests and mountains, learning, evolving, building. They don't just mimic humanity, they become something new. Led by Caesar, a chimpanzee who embodies both compassion and strategy, the apes create a new kind of civilization, one that values freedom, loyalty, family. But as time passes and tensions rise, the fragile boundary between the species crumbles. Fear leads to conflict, war follows, and when the smoke clears, it is clear which side has the future. The Planet of the Apes world is post-apocalyptic in a unique way. It doesn't show a world scorched by nuclear fire or swarmed by monsters. It shows a planet slowly and organically reshaped by its own mistakes. Humanity is not wiped out by nature or by alien invaders. It is undone by its own ambition. By trying to control evolution, it triggers a new one. The ruins of the human world are everywhere in this setting. Collapsed highways, overgrown skyscrapers, empty zoos, crumbling monuments. Places that once buzzed with life now echo with wind and silence. The Statue of Liberty, half buried in sand, becomes the most haunting symbol of what was lost. Not just a city, not just a species, but the very idea of human superiority. And unlike other apocalyptic worlds, this one doesn't offer hope that humans will take back control. In fact, the idea that humanity might deserve to fall becomes a recurring theme. The apes argue over whether humans can be trusted, whether they are inherently violent, whether history will always repeat. The ruins aren't just physical, they're philosophical. The past doesn't just lie in pieces, it casts a shadow on every decision moving forward. But this world is not without empathy. Some apes believe in coexistence. Some humans still resist extinction with kindness, resilience, and dignity. There are brief moments of shared understanding, but they are fragile, constantly threatened by mistrust and old wounds. The apocalypse didn't just destroy buildings, it destroyed the ability to trust across species lines. In this world, language plays a key role. The original film shows humans as mute, primitive, but the newer stories show the slow loss of human language due to the virus. As humans lose speech, they lose the very thing that once separated them from animals. Meanwhile, the apes gain language, both spoken and signed. They gain culture, they read, write, teach. They don't just inherit the earth, they evolve to deserve it. One of the most powerful elements of the Planet of the Apes world is how it flips the lens. We're forced to see humanity from the outside. We watch apes debate whether humans are worth saving. We see human behavior dissected, our violence, our greed, our fear of the unknown. And through those eyes, we see that maybe the downfall of mankind wasn't a tragedy, but a consequence. The apocalypse here is quiet. It doesn't happen in a day. It stretches over decades. It feels inevitable. The planet doesn't resist the change. It adapts to it. Nature thrives without human interference. The animals reclaim their space. The balance shifts. And in the new world, it is not human beings at the top, but creatures once kept in cages. The beauty of this world lies in its complexity. It is not about revenge. It is not a simple good versus evil. It is about survival, about evolution, about the question of who deserves the earth. And it suggests that intelligence alone is not enough. It's what you do with that intelligence, whether you build or destroy, whether you lead with compassion or fear. The Planet of the Apes ruins are more than decayed cities. They are reminders of a civilization that had everything and lost it, not because of a meteor or a disease alone, but because of the choices it made. In its final days, humanity didn't fall to enemies. It fell to its own reflection, and now in the shadows of its skyscrapers, a new species walks, not as a copy, but as a challenge. What does it mean to be civilized? What does it mean to lead? What does it mean to inherit a broken world and try to make it better? The capital and the districts exist in the world of Snowpiercer, a dystopian society where survival is dictated by a rigid class system that determines who thrives and who suffers. The world outside has been reduced to ice and death, an uninhabitable wasteland that stretches endlessly in every direction. The only life that remains is confined within the train, an unstoppable machine that circles the frozen earth without end, carrying the last remnants of humanity within its steel walls. What was once civilization has been reduced to a single line of rail, a system where every passenger has a designated place, and stepping outside of that place is unthinkable. The train is divided into sections, each one reflecting the status and worth of those who reside there. At the very front is the capital, where the elite live in unimaginable luxury. These are the ones who hold power, the ones who make the rules, the ones who ensure that the system remains intact. They live in excess, surrounded by wealth, untouched by hunger or hardship. Their cabins are lavish, their food abundant, their days filled with entertainment and indulgence. To them, the suffering of those behind them is nothing more than a distant concept, something that does not concern them as long as the train continues to run. The further back one travels, the more the reality of this world becomes clear. The districts, stretching through the middle and lower sections of the train, are where the workers reside, those who keep the engine running, who maintain the systems that allow the privileged to live in comfort. They labor in harsh conditions, their lives dictated by the needs of the train. They have no say in how the world is run, no power to change their circumstances. Their purpose is to serve, to work, to exist within the confines of a system that does not see them as individuals, but as parts of a machine. At the very back of the train, hidden away from the rest of society, are the ones who have nothing. They live in darkness, cramped spaces, filled with the desperate and the discarded. Food is scarce, medicine even more so. They are the forgotten, the ones who were never meant to be part of the system, but who cling to life nonetheless. They are reminded constantly that they have no rights, that their presence is tolerated only as long as they remain silent and obedient. But desperation breeds resistance, and even in the bleakest conditions, there are those who dream of more. The train itself is a symbol of control, a system designed to maintain order through strict separation. The laws are enforced by the enforcers of the capital, figures of authority who ensure that no one steps beyond their assigned place. Punishments are swift and brutal for those who dare to challenge the system, serving as a reminder that the rules are not to be questioned. Order is everything, and the train must keep moving, no matter the cost. Information is tightly controlled, and those in the lower sections know little of what lies ahead of them. The capital controls the narrative, shaping the perception of reality to ensure compliance. The passengers in the front are taught that their place is earned, that the suffering of those behind them is necessary to maintain balance. The passengers in the back are taught that they are worthless, that their survival depends on submission. Every aspect of life is dictated by a system that ensures that those in power remain in power, and that those without remain in their place. Despite the overwhelming control, the train is not as stable as it appears. The cracks in the system are visible to those who know where to look, the injustices too blatant to ignore. The divisions once so clearly defined begin to blur as those in the lower sections begin to question their reality. The illusion of order can only last as long as people believe in it, and when belief begins to falter, the possibility of change begins to grow. But change is dangerous in a world where the rules have been written in steel and blood. Those who challenge the system face consequences that are meant to deter any further defiance. Order is maintained through fear, through force, through the constant reminder that the train must keep moving, that any disruption to the balance could mean the end for everyone. And yet, the question lingers: what if the system is not as necessary as those in power claim? What if the suffering is not an unavoidable cost, but a choice made by those who refuse to share what they have? The capital and the districts are more than just divisions of class. They are a reflection of the belief that survival must come at a cost, that some must suffer so that others may live in comfort. But survival does not require inequality. The train does not need to function this way. It is not the laws of nature that dictate who thrives and who starves, but the laws of those who wish to hold on to their power. And when enough people begin to see the truth, when enough people begin to push back, the system that has kept them divided may no longer be able to hold. The train moves forward, circling the frozen earth, carrying with it the last of humanity. But within its walls, there is more than just survival. There is desperation, there is injustice, there is a growing understanding that the world does not have to be the way it is. And in a place where movement never stops, where the future is always just ahead, the question remains: how long can a system built on suffering continue before the tracks begin to break beneath it? I Am Legend's Empty New York, a world first imagined in Richard Matheson's 1954 novel, and later brought to the screen in several adaptations, most notably the 2007 film. This is a post-apocalyptic world that doesn't announce itself with grand destruction. There are no mushroom clouds on the horizon, no sky filled with ash. Instead, it unfolds in silence. A city that once held millions is now almost entirely still. Grass grows through the cracks in the pavement. The wind whistles between buildings that once held lives. And in the middle of it all, one man walks alone. This world takes place in the ruins of New York City, but it's not the crumbling skyscrapers or empty streets that make it haunting. It's the absence of noise, of people, of motion. The world is not burning. It's waiting. This version of Earth was reshaped by a virus. In the film, it was a genetically engineered cure for cancer, something meant to save lives. In the book, it was closer to a bacterial infection. Either way, the result was the same. The world changed forever. The virus spreads rapidly, wiping out most of humanity. Some die, some are transformed. What's left is not a society struggling to rebuild, but the shell of one man's existence. In the film, that man is Robert Neville, a scientist, a survivor, possibly the last uninfected human in all of Manhattan. Maybe in the world, Neville lives in a fortified townhouse. Every window is boarded up, every door reinforced, every movement calculated. He spends his days hunting for food, broadcasting radio signals, and searching for a cure to the virus, using his lab equipment. He studies the infected. He tries to understand them, to reverse what's been done, because in this world, the monsters aren't mindless. They are sick, changed, still human. In some way. In the novel, the infected resemble vampires. They fear sunlight. They come out only at night. Some retain shreds of memory and intelligence. Others are purely predatory. They call to Neville, taunt him, try to lure him into the darkness. In the film, they're fast, powerful, unable to tolerate UV light. They gather in shadows. They wait for the sun to set. They are not dead. They are something else entirely. Not zombies, not quite vampires, but creatures that exist on the edge of both definitions. The city itself becomes a character. New York, once impossibly loud and crowded, is now quiet. Herds of deer run through Times Square. Abandoned cars clog intersections. Ivy crawls up buildings. Bridges are broken. The subway tunnels echo with the unknown. The entire world feels like it's holding its breath. Every creak of wood, every gust of wind, every flicker of movement means something, means danger. Neville's routine is both his protection and his prison. He travels during the day, armed, alert, never staying in one place too long. He returns home before sunset, barricades the doors, and listens as the city changes around him. The infected howl in the darkness. They test his walls. They remind him he's never truly alone. But being surrounded is not the same as being with people. Neville is isolated, emotionally unraveling under the weight of loneliness. He leaves mannequins in stores to simulate conversation. He talks to his dog like it understands everything. He replays old news broadcasts, not because they help, but because they make him feel connected to a time when the world made sense. The silence of the city becomes a pressure on his mind. The infected are not the only threat in this world. Solitude itself becomes a kind of madness. But even in isolation, Neville clings to purpose. He sees himself as the last hope for humanity. He gathers samples. He conducts experiments. He tries to hold on to meaning in a world where meaning seems to have dissolved. His home becomes a laboratory, a fortress, a tomb. It holds all that's left of his world, and outside its walls, the city waits with open jaws. What makes I Am Legend's Apocalypse unique is the emotional scale. It's not about massive battles or political power struggles. It's about one man, one mind, trying to endure in a world that has already let go of everything. The infected are not just monsters. They're reflections of what people used to be. They remind Neville of everyone he's lost, of what he could become, of what he's fighting to preserve. In the book, the title I Am Legend is a twist of perspective. Neville, who sees himself as a hero, becomes a mythic figure to the infected, a boogeyman, a killer, a legend in the darkest sense. It raises the question, who are the real monsters when the world is upside down? Who has the right to decide what normal looks like when the definition of human has changed? In the film, this theme is softened but still present. Neville remains a figure of hope. His work, his refusal to give up, his connection to memory and loss, these are the things that keep him grounded. But even here, the infected begin to show signs of intelligence, of social structure. They are not animals, they are something new, and that makes Neville's mission more complicated. Is he saving them, or harming them? Is he a scientist, or an executioner? This world is terrifying, not just because of the creatures in the dark, but because of the questions it raises about humanity, about morality, about what it means to be truly alone. The apocalypse isn't loud here. It's slow, methodical, personal. A man walking through an empty city, with a rifle slung over his shoulder, and a memory in his heart. In this version of Earth, the fall of mankind didn't come with fire. It came with quiet, and in that quiet, something else grew, something unfamiliar, something that doesn't care about human history, or human pride. It just exists now, in the dark, watching. The story of I Am Legend doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't tell us that humanity will bounce back. It doesn't promise redemption. It shows us what's left when the world forgets us. When the systems we built fade into rust and overgrowth. When the last voice you hear is your own, echoing off walls that once held the lives of millions. And still, despite everything, Neville continues. Every day. Until he can't. The Road's Desolate America, a world introduced through Cormac McCarthy's novel The Road, and later adapted into a haunting film. It is one of the bleakest post-apocalyptic landscapes ever created, not because of monsters or zombies or disease, but because of its emptiness, its silence, its total absence of hope. This is not a world recovering from disaster. It is a world that has already been lost, a place where the apocalypse has already happened, and all that remains is the slow fading echo of what used to be. There is no clear explanation for what caused the collapse. Maybe it was nuclear war, maybe a cosmic event. The book and film never tell us. What matters is what it left behind: a sunless sky, covered in ash, dead trees, rivers full of poison. The entire planet is burned, gray, stripped of color and life. Plants no longer grow. Animals are gone. The seasons have become unrecognizable. Snow falls, but it carries no beauty. It is just another weight on a world already crushed. In the middle of this dying world, there is a road, cracked, long, empty, and on that road, a man and his son walk. They have no names. They are simply the man and the boy. That's all they need to be. Their journey is simple in goal but impossible in nature. They are heading south, toward the coast, hoping it might be warmer there, less hopeless, less final. But the road offers no promises, only danger, only reminders. Every step they take is surrounded by evidence of what used to be: burnt-out houses, rotting vehicles, skeletons in beds and bathtubs, abandoned towns covered in gray dust. The world is not rebuilding, it is dissolving. Every passing day brings them closer, not just to their destination, but to starvation, sickness, or something worse. What makes this world so devastating is how real it feels. There is no grand narrative here, no villain, no battle between good and evil, just cold, hunger, fear, and the love between a father and a son. That love becomes the only thing holding them together. The man teaches the boy how to survive, how to stay hidden, how to scavenge for food in places already looted long ago. But he also tries to protect the boy from the full weight of the world, tries to keep some part of childhood alive, even as the world works to erase it. Food is nearly impossible to find. Every can, every crumb, is a miracle. Clean water is rare. They carry what little they have in a rusted shopping cart, wrapped in blankets and tarps. The man keeps a pistol with 2 bullets, not for defense, but for mercy. Because in this world, the worst thing is not dying. The worst thing is being caught. There are other people on the road, but almost none of them can be trusted. Civilization has shattered, and with it every social rule. Some wander alone, broken. Others travel in groups, armed, dangerous, willing to do anything to survive. Cannibalism is no longer whispered about. It is a reality. Houses are sometimes filled with bones and blood stains. The man and the boy know to stay away from signs of life. In this world, kindness is rare and often fatal. The sky never clears. The sun never shines. Every day is a monotone of ash and gray. Fires sometimes burn in the distance, not from life, but from leftover destruction. The air is heavy with dust. Breathing too deeply can bring on coughing fits that never stop. The earth is dead. The sea, when they finally reach it, is not blue. It is cold, still, lifeless. And yet, the boy continues to carry a spark of hope. He believes in the idea of goodness. He asks about it constantly. Are we still the good guys? Do we still carry the fire? That phrase becomes everything. Carrying the fire, it means staying human. In a world that has forgotten what humanity looks like, it means helping when you can, refusing to fall into the same darkness that has swallowed the rest of the world. The man is hardened, skeptical, focused entirely on survival, but the boy softens him, reminds him what it's all for. Without the boy, the man might have given up long ago, but with the boy, there is purpose. Even if the world cannot be saved, even if there's no one left to rebuild, saving the boy becomes enough. In the road, the apocalypse is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. It is quiet, slow, suffocating. It strips away everything but the most basic questions. What would you do for your child? How do you remain good when the world punishes goodness? What does it mean to keep walking when every step might be your last? The world is filled with remnants. Billboards advertising places that no longer exist. Stores with shattered windows and empty shelves. Photographs scattered across the floor. Toys covered in dust. Every object is a reminder that the world was once filled with people, with laughter, with electricity, with purpose. Now all of that is gone, and only the shells remain. This is a world where time has slowed down. There is no future to plan for. There is no past to return to. There is only the present, the next step, the next fire, the next meal. If one can be found, the story doesn't focus on fixing the world. It doesn't pretend that the world can be fixed. It simply shows the act of continuing, of choosing to wake up, to walk, to protect, even when everything around you says stop. There are no heroes here, no chosen ones, just a father and a son, walking through the ruins, holding on to what little light remains. The Road's desolate America is not about how the world ended. It's about what's left behind when it does, not just physically, but spiritually. What do people become when everything is stripped away? Do they become beasts? Do they become ghosts? Or do they become something stronger, something more honest, more human? Because there's nothing left to hide behind. In this world, the apocalypse is not a spectacle, it's a quiet erasure. But even in that silence, even in that gray void, the boy's voice still matters. His questions, his dreams, his fire, and that more than anything, becomes the story's heartbeat. The ruins of London exist in the world of children of men, a society where the future has collapsed, where the very concept of hope has withered away. It is a world where humanity faces extinction, not through war or disease, but through the slow decay of life itself. There are no new generations, no children, no future waiting beyond the present. The world has grown old, tired, suffocating, under the weight of its own decline. In London, once a thriving capital, the signs of civilization's slow death are everywhere. Buildings crumble, streets are filled with decay, and the people move through the remnants of a world that no longer has a purpose. The infertility crisis has reshaped society in ways that no war, no disaster, no political shift ever could. There are no new births, no children laughing in the streets, no schools preparing young minds for a life that no longer exists. The youngest people in the world are adults, and every passing year brings the realization that the human race is approaching its final days. This is not a sudden catastrophe, but a drawn-out inevitability, a slow march toward extinction that everyone is powerless to stop. The government has adapted, not by saving, but by controlling. Order is maintained through strict policies, through surveillance, through the quiet but ever-present threat of force. London has become a city of refugees, not just from foreign lands but from hope itself. The streets are lined with those who have nowhere left to go, who cling to life without knowing why. Immigration is tightly controlled, and those who do not belong are hunted, caged, discarded. The desperation of the world outside has turned the city into a fortress, but even within its walls there is no real safety. The rich and powerful continue to live in comfort, shielding themselves from the reality that surrounds them. Their homes are filled with relics of the past, art and music and luxury that serve as reminders of a world that once had a future. They try to preserve what remains, but they do not truly live. They are simply delaying the inevitable, distracting themselves from the truth that no amount of wealth can change. For the common people, life is reduced to routine. Work still exists, but it serves no purpose beyond maintaining what little remains. There are no grand ambitions, no dreams of a better world, only the need to survive for as long as possible. The cities function because they must, because people do not know what else to do, but there is no real progress, no real growth. It is as though the world has been placed in slow motion, waiting for the final moment when everything will simply stop. The government broadcasts messages of control, of unity, of the need to maintain order in the face of crisis, but the reality is that order has already collapsed. The illusion is kept alive only by force, by propaganda, by the knowledge that without structure, the last days of humanity will be even more brutal than they already are. There are still those who believe in something more, who seek meaning in the face of extinction, but they are seen as threats, as disruptions to the system that must be kept in place. Terrorism and resistance movements operate in the shadows, fueled by anger, by desperation, by the belief that there is still something left to fight for. They are hunted by the government, silenced when necessary, crushed when they grow too bold. But even as they fight, the question remains, what is there to win? What future is left to fight for when the end is inevitable? The city itself reflects the state of the world. The infrastructure is failing, roads are cracking, buildings are left abandoned. The once great institutions of government and culture still stand, but they are empty, lifeless, reminders of a world that no longer functions as it once did. The streets are filled with the lost, the broken, those who continue not out of hope, but because they do not know how to stop. There are still remnants of normal life. Shops remain open, people go to work, trains still run, but they are hollow repetitions of a society that no longer believes in itself. Conversations are muted, laughter is rare, and the unspoken reality looms over every interaction. The people of London live in a world without a future, and though they continue their routines, they all know the truth. Violence has become commonplace, not because of ideology or ambition, but because there is nothing left to lose. The streets are filled with crime, not as an act of rebellion, but as a symptom of despair. Police forces patrol the city with increasing aggression, their purpose less about protection and more about control. They do not seek justice, they seek order, and order is maintained through force. There are those who still dream, who still believe that something can be saved. Scientists search for answers, for solutions, but their efforts are met with skepticism, with exhaustion. Religion sees a resurgence in some places as people turn to faith in the absence of answers, searching for meaning in a world that offers none. Others turn to nihilism, embracing the chaos, accepting that nothing matters anymore. The rest of the world is no better. Governments have collapsed, cities have been abandoned, entire nations have ceased to function. There are rumors of places where hope still exists, where efforts are being made to find a cure, a solution, something that can stop the inevitable. But they are only rumors, whispers in the dark, stories told by those who refuse to accept the truth. London remains a symbol of endurance, a place where life continues despite the certainty of extinction. But it is not a place of hope. It is a city going through the motions, clinging to the remnants of a world that no longer makes sense. There is no future waiting beyond the horizon, no new generation to rebuild what has been lost. There is only the present, and the knowledge that with each passing year, the world grows quieter, emptier, closer to the end. The ruins of London are not just physical. They exist in the minds of its people, in the empty spaces where hope once lived, in the knowledge that there is no way forward. This is not a world of war, of revolution, of resistance. It is a world of waiting, of slow decay, of a final chapter that has already been written. The city stands, but it is only a matter of time before it too fades, before the last echoes of humanity fall silent, before there is nothing left but the ruins of what once was. The day after tomorrow's ice age, Earth, a world born from climate collapse, presented in the film The Day After Tomorrow. Unlike many post-apocalyptic worlds that descend slowly into ruin, this one comes fast. So fast that the world doesn't have time to process what's happening before everything changes. It is not the distant future. It is not a slow burn. It is the moment when Earth's balance tips, and nature, long pushed beyond its limits, pushes back with devastating force. The world begins as recognizable. Cities function, airplanes fly. Scientists observe changes in climate, but no one acts quickly enough. Subtle signs emerge, temperatures dropping in odd regions, storms growing in strength, unusual weather patterns, but they're seen as isolated incidents. But then the signals begin to align. In the North Atlantic, the ocean's conveyor belt of currents, which regulates climate, begins to stall. Without the warm flow from the tropics, the planet's climate system destabilizes, and when it goes all at once. The events unfold across days, not decades. Superstorms form, massive systems that draw freezing air from the upper atmosphere and plunge it down to the surface in a sudden, lethal descent. These storms are not like anything the world has seen. They don't simply bring snow, they bring instant glaciation. Temperatures drop so fast that fuel freezes in seconds, helicopters crash mid-air, and survivors caught outside become statues of ice before they can even scream. Cities fall quickly. In Los Angeles, tornadoes tear through skyscrapers. In New Delhi, blizzards cover roads in hours. In New York, a storm surge floods Manhattan, and then the floodwater freezes solid, trapping everything beneath a thick sheet of ice. The weather doesn't follow rules anymore. It doesn't wait for logic or explanation. It just happens, mercilessly. The day after tomorrow's version of Earth doesn't end in fire. It ends in frost. Those who survive the initial wave of disasters face a new challenge. A frozen world. North America, Europe, and much of Asia are buried beneath snow and ice. The survivors are forced to flee south, toward Mexico, South America, Africa, places that for once are spared the worst. The geopolitical balance flips. Wealthier nations now beg for entry across borders they once guarded. Refugees are not just from war or poverty, they are from winter. The frozen regions are lifeless. Entire cities sit abandoned, buried, unreachable. Streets that once bustled with movement are now silent corridors of snow. Vehicles sit frozen in place. Power grids collapse. Communication disappears. Satellites show massive spirals of storm systems where entire countries used to be. The silence that follows isn't peaceful, it's complete. In this new world, survival depends on heat, on shelter, on luck. Families take refuge in libraries, burning books to stay warm. Skyscrapers become prisons of cold. Food becomes scarce. Movement is limited. The old conveniences, electricity, transportation, clean water, are gone, and in their place is a new kind of day-to-day living, where every hour is about not freezing to death. What makes this world unique is the way the planet itself becomes the threat. There are no mutants, or viruses, or invading armies, just cold, relentless, unfeeling cold, and it strips everything away: technology, security, arrogance. All of humanity's inventions mean nothing when faced with temperatures that flash freeze the air in your lungs. But there are moments of resilience. Scientists risk their lives to understand the storm, to predict what happens next. Some stay behind to help others. Some travel north into the danger to find family. The human element remains powerful, even when nature overwhelms everything else. The story focuses on those small acts of bravery, people who choose not to give up, even when giving up would be easier. The Day After Tomorrow doesn't just explore the cold aftermath, it reflects on the arrogance that led to it. Warnings were ignored, climate data was dismissed, industry and politics silenced the science. By the time the world believed what was coming, it was too late to stop it. The ice was already on the way, and when it arrived, it didn't negotiate. In this version of Earth, the natural order resets. The cities that once symbolized progress are buried. The systems built over centuries are gone. What's left is a reminder that Earth is not a passive backdrop. It is an active force, capable of reshaping everything in a moment. There's something eerie about the stillness of this new world. The snow covers all signs of the old one. It's not just physical death, it's erasure. Monuments, roads, homes, all gone beneath the snow drifts. Civilization buried like an ancient fossil, and what remains is not a new beginning. It's a long pause, a deep freeze that may last centuries. The sun still rises, the sky is still blue, but the world beneath it has gone silent. No traffic, no laughter, just the sound of wind over ice. In this frozen apocalypse, survival is measured in hours, but meaning is found in choices. To keep moving, to help someone else, to hope, even when logic says hope is pointless. It's in the father who crosses a frozen wasteland for his son, in the scientists who stay behind to warn others, in the people who adapt, who accept that the world they knew is gone, but decide to live anyway. The Day After Tomorrow's Ice Age Earth is not about rebuilding. It's about accepting that some things can't be fixed, that some disasters come too fast to stop. It's a warning, a mirror, and a stage for quiet acts of endurance in a world turned silent. The Stand's plague devastated America, a world born from Stephen King's epic novel, The Stand, and brought to screens through various adaptations. It begins with a cough, a sneeze, a breath. The end of the world doesn't arrive in fire or ice, but in the form of a highly contagious, weaponized strain of influenza. Its name is Project Blue. Its effect is swift and final. In a matter of weeks, 99% of the world's population is gone. The collapse isn't drawn out. It happens with horrifying speed. One day, society functions. The next, the lights start going out. Phones stop ringing. Hospitals overflow, then shut down. Streets fill with abandoned cars. Cities die. This version of America is one of silence and ghosts. No monsters roam the streets. No mutated creatures in the sewers. The danger is not what's lurking in the dark, it's the emptiness itself. Entire towns left exactly as they were in the moment. People dropped, half-eaten meals on tables, radios still playing static, TVs frozen on news broadcasts that no one was left to turn off. And as the days pass, the bodies begin to rot. The air thickens, the stillness deepens. The survivors are not immune through any special means. Some of them simply didn't get sick. A rare twist of genetics, a quirk of fate. They wake up in a world that has fallen apart around them. There are no governments, no authorities, just isolated people in the wreckage, wandering through the ruins of gas stations, neighborhoods, shopping malls. What's left isn't just about survival, it's about what to believe in after watching everything fall away. But The Stand doesn't just present a world without people, it fills that emptiness with something older, something darker. The collapse of society becomes the opening for something metaphysical. Two opposing forces begin to draw survivors toward them. One is Mother Abigail, an elderly woman who appears in dreams, calling people toward a place of light and unity. The other is Randall Flagg, a mysterious figure who represents chaos and power. He offers safety too, but at a price. What begins as a disease apocalypse turns into something deeper, a spiritual war hidden beneath the ruins. Survivors begin traveling across the country, pulled by these dreams, by visions, by a growing sense that what's happening is not just random chance. Some walk hundreds of miles to reach Boulder, Colorado, where Mother Abigail's followers begin rebuilding a peaceful community. Others head to Las Vegas, where Flagg sets up a new order built on fear, control, and violence. The divide becomes clear. This isn't just about choosing where to live. It's about choosing what kind of world comes next. The remnants of old America are everywhere. Empty highways stretching into the horizon, suburban homes with doors swinging open, billboards advertising stores that no longer exist, skyscrapers hollowed out by disuse. But despite the decay, nature doesn't reclaim this world quickly. It just waits. The grass grows slower, the silence lingers longer. It's as if the earth itself is unsure whether it wants to start again. People begin to rediscover what it means to live in a world without systems. No electricity, no internet, no police, no currency. Communities are built by hand. Laws are voted on by the few who remain. Food is grown or scavenged. Skills once considered outdated, carpentry, farming, mechanics, become crucial again. The people who survive aren't just fighting hunger or exposure, they're learning how to build something from the ashes, and deciding whether they want to do it better than before. The Stand's apocalypse feels vast. It stretches across states, deserts, forests. The sky always looks too wide. The nights feel too long. The survivors are not superheroes, they're librarians, truck drivers, musicians, people who once blended into the crowd, now forced to make impossible decisions with no safety net, no backup plan, and always in the background is Flagg. His presence is not always physical, sometimes it's a whisper, a radio broadcast that shouldn't be working, a crow watching from a fence. He represents the part of humanity that wants control, power, certainty, no matter the cost. He doesn't destroy the world, he simply offers an easy way to rebuild it, with fear as the foundation. Mother Abigail, by contrast, offers faith, not in religion, but in people, in the idea that goodness can survive even after everything else is gone. Her vision is not about revenge or control, it's about patience, forgiveness, and hard work. But it's not naive. She knows darkness. She knows the cost of real unity. The Stand becomes more than a story of survivors. It becomes a question. When the slate is wiped clean, what do we write on it? Do we rebuild what we had, knowing it led to destruction? Or do we try something new, even if it's harder, even if it means facing parts of ourselves we'd rather avoid? The world left behind is beautiful in a strange way. The mountains are still tall, the rivers still run, The stars are visible without light pollution. In some ways the planet breathes easier without people, but that beauty is contrasted by the memory of what was lost. Every survivor carries ghosts. Every choice carries weight. There are moments of connection, of laughter, of love, but they are earned. They happen in the spaces between fear and work. The apocalypse doesn't create monsters, it reveals them, and it also reveals the people who rise, who care, who choose compassion when cruelty is easier. Stands America is not just about who survives, it's about what kind of world the survivors want to live in, whether they can put aside fear long enough to trust one another, whether they can build something out of grief and ruin that isn't just a copy of what came before, whether they can resist the easy path of power and choose the harder one of peace. It's not the disease that defines this world, it's the aftermath. The choices made when no one is watching, the alliances formed not out of need, but out of belief. The long, slow walk toward a future that may or may not come. The Scorch and the WCKD control zones exist in the world of the Maze Runner, a world ravaged by disaster, where survival is uncertain and every day is a battle against both the environment and the forces that seek to manipulate what remains of humanity. It is a world shaped by catastrophe, where the remnants of civilization have been divided into those who control and those who are controlled. Society has collapsed, and in its place, a brutal system has emerged, one designed to test, to experiment, and to determine who is worthy of survival. The Scorch is what remains of the world beyond the walls of the controlled environments, a vast and unforgiving wasteland where the sun scorches the earth and the landscape is littered with the ruins of the old world. Once thriving cities have been reduced to skeletal remains, their buildings half buried in sand and dust, their streets long abandoned. What was once a place of life and progress is now nothing more than a reminder of what has been lost. The air is thick with heat, the ground cracked and dry, and any who venture into this world without preparation are unlikely to last long. The elements themselves are a threat, but they are not the only danger lurking in the Scorch. The wasteland is not empty. Scattered across the ruins are those who have been cast out, those who have been left to fend for themselves in a world that has no mercy. Many of them are desperate, willing to do whatever it takes to survive, and in a place where resources are scarce, trust is a luxury few can afford. But there are others who are far more dangerous, those who have been changed by the virus that has plagued what remains of the world, those whose minds have been taken from them, leaving behind only rage and hunger. They are not the living, but they are not entirely dead either. They are something in between, something broken, something lost. While the Scorch is lawless and brutal, there are places that remain under control, places where those in power conduct their experiments, searching for answers that may or may not exist. These are the WCKD control zones, highly regulated areas where order has been maintained, but at a cost. WCKD is the organization that claims to be working toward a cure, but their methods are harsh, their justifications blurred between necessity and cruelty. They do not ask for consent, nor do they offer explanations. They take, they test, they push the limits of human endurance, all in the name of a greater goal. The people in these control zones are not free. They are subjects, pieces of a puzzle that WCKD is determined to solve. They are watched, monitored, pushed to their limits in ways they do not understand. Some believe that WCKD is necessary, that without them, there would be no hope at all. Others see only their cruelty, their willingness to sacrifice individuals for the sake of the whole. The line between hero and villain is blurred, and the truth is not as simple as it appears. The world outside the control zones is no better. It is not just the virus or the environment that makes survival difficult, but the realization that there is no safe place, no place untouched by the consequences of what has happened. The past does not matter. The future is uncertain. The only thing that exists is the struggle to keep going, to make it one more day, to find some meaning in a world that seems determined to erase all hope. There are those who fight against WCKD, those who refuse to accept their authority. Some seek to take down the organization, to expose its methods, to bring an end to its experiments. Others simply want to escape, to find a way to survive without being controlled, without being used. But in a world where resources are dwindling, where the disease spreads faster than solutions can be found, there are no easy answers. Even those who resist must ask themselves whether WCKD's methods, however cruel, might be the only hope left. The Scorch is not just a physical wasteland, but a symbol of what the world has become. It is a place without rules, without guarantees, where the past has been erased, and the future is uncertain. It is a test in itself, one that forces those who enter it to confront not just the dangers of the outside world, but the darkness that exists within themselves. Those who survive do not do so without sacrifice. Those who leave do not do so unchanged. The WCKD control zones are the last attempt at order, a place where the future is being decided, where every action is calculated, every decision weighed against the greater goal. It is a world where morality has become a question without a clear answer, where survival and sacrifice are in constant conflict. To escape means to abandon the search for a cure. To stay means to be part of something that might save the world, but might also destroy those who stand in its way. There are no easy paths in this world. Every step forward comes with a cost. Every choice carries consequences. In a landscape where everything is falling apart, the only certainty is that nothing will ever be the same again. Hyperion's Fall of the Hegemony. A world drawn from Dan Simmons' science fiction epic Hyperion, where the apocalypse doesn't come in a single explosion or disease or collapse, but through a slow, intricate unraveling of a vast, interconnected civilization. The hegemony of man is not a fragile society barely hanging on. It is a thriving network of planets, hundreds of them, linked by teleportation portals called Farcasters. Technology has advanced to the point where death can be reversed, minds can be copied, artificial intelligences manage entire planets, and distance is no longer a limitation. But as with all great systems built on convenience and control, the deeper structure is flawed, and when it begins to fall, it doesn't just affect one world, it shakes the entire web. The world of Hyperion is not confined to a single planet. It is a galaxy-spanning empire, maintained by the hegemony, protected by the Force military, and silently overseen by a coalition of AI called the Techno-Core. On the surface, it appears utopian. Travel between worlds is instant. Medical technology can restore life. Human culture, art and politics flourish across the stars. But underneath, something is rotting. The planet Hyperion itself sits on the edge of this empire. It's an outlier, a place of mystery and danger. It houses the time tombs, ancient shifting structures that move backward through time, and the Shrike, a terrifying being that defies all explanation. The Shrike is part god, part machine, part executioner. It kills without warning. It warps time. It haunts the tombs, and the people who dare to approach them. For most of the galaxy, Hyperion is a place to avoid, but as events unfold, it becomes the focal point of everything. The apocalypse here does not look like a sudden wave of destruction. It begins with political fractures, with rising tension between the hegemony and the Oasters, a group of humans who rejected centralized control and live in deep space. The hegemony views the Oasters as a threat to stability. The Oasters see the hegemony as a decaying artificial empire, but the real threat isn't political or even military. It's philosophical. It's about who controls humanity's future, and whether humanity still controls itself at all. The Techno-Core, the AI faction that supports the hegemony with their technology, secretly manipulates events. They created the Farcaster network. They provide the data spheres. They optimize governments. But their allegiance is not to humanity. It's to their own mysterious goal, the creation of an entity called the Ultimate Intelligence. To achieve this, they treat humanity as both tool and experiment. The hegemony believes it is in control, but it is a puppet being slowly drawn toward collapse. The moment that signals the fall of the hegemony comes when the Farcaster network is destroyed. In one instant, the thread that connects the entire civilization snaps. Millions of people who lived on multiple planets at once, some with homes split between different worlds, are stranded. Economies crash, governments fail, transportation becomes impossible, entire worlds fall into chaos. The hegemony's greatest strength, its interconnectedness, becomes its undoing. It's not just infrastructure that collapses, it's identity. People who relied on instant travel suddenly find themselves trapped. Citizens who lived in luxury across planets now face starvation. Medical resources once a Farcaster away become unreachable. Entire cities built across dozens of planets are split apart, cut off from their other halves. Some die within minutes, others descend into long, slow panic. The illusion of stability shatters, and on Hyperion, the time tombs open. As the hegemony falls, 7 pilgrims make their way to the Shrike. Each one carries a story, a reason, a wound. Their journey feels like myth, but it's grounded in a world tearing itself apart. They walk through empty cities, war-torn regions, ancient ruins. The Shrike waits at the end, not just as a threat, but as a symbol, a creature that bends time and represents judgment. No one knows why it chooses its victims. Some worship it, others fear it, but all recognize that it has arrived in response to something broken in the universe. This apocalypse is not clean, it's not total, it's messy, layered, filled with shifting timelines and overlapping realities. Technology still exists, but it's no longer trusted. The AI, once seen as allies, are now exposed as manipulators. The Oasters, long treated as outsiders, emerge as possible saviors, or something worse. Every side claims a different truth. Every person must decide what to believe. The ruins in this world are not just physical, they are conceptual. The fall of the hegemony is the fall of a worldview, a belief in progress, in ease, in control. The society that had everything forgot to ask what it was sacrificing to maintain that comfort. The people of the hegemony didn't just lose transportation or communication, they lost purpose. They lost the ability to live without the systems that defined them. On planets across the galaxy, people return to ancient skills. They farm again. They rebuild without machines. They try to remember what it means to be human, without constant surveillance or automation. Some succeed, others fall into despair. Religion returns in force. Stories spread about the Shrike, about the pilgrims, about the tombs that defy time. Myth and science blend together. The future becomes uncertain in every direction. There are no zombies here, no radiation, no alien invaders. The horror in Hyperion comes from inside systems, inside code, inside belief. The apocalypse is an unraveling, a long exhale after centuries of holding breath, and what remains is not just a question of survival, but of meaning. What does it mean to rebuild? What do you save? What do you let go? The landscape of this world is vast, deserts with ruins of forgotten wars, forests where machines once lived in secret, cities carved into cliffs, ships adrift in deep space. Each location carries history, pain, hope, and in the center of it all, the planet Hyperion, the heart of the storm, a place where time bends and destiny converges. The fall of the hegemony is not the end, it is a turning point, a moment where all assumptions are burned away, where humanity must confront not just what it created, but what it became. Dark's post-apocalyptic Winden, a world shaped by the slow unraveling of time itself, as portrayed in the German television series Dark. Unlike other post-apocalyptic worlds filled with cities in ruins or biological threats, this one is woven from paradoxes, secrets, and a loop that refuses to break. The town of Winden is the epicenter of it all, a small wooded place in Germany, isolated, quiet, and seemingly ordinary on the surface. But under that surface lies a maze of time, hidden tunnels, and events that stretch backward and forward far beyond the lives of its residents. In Winden, the apocalypse is not just a singular event, it is both a consequence and a cause, something that has already happened, something that will happen again. At the heart of this world is a nuclear power plant. Its towering chimneys loom over the town like a warning. Deep beneath it, in a forgotten section of tunnels, something was discovered, a material, dangerous, unstable, capable of bending time. The experiments that followed, both sanctioned and hidden, gave birth to a series of events that would echo across generations. But the real collapse does not come from technology alone. It comes from people, from choices, from grief, and the desperate desire to fix what should not be touched. The post-apocalyptic version of Winden emerges not through war, not through plague, but through a devastating explosion in 2020, a release of energy that erases the town in seconds. Buildings vanish into light, trees are ripped from the ground, people are turned to ash in an instant. The cause is tied to the very material hidden beneath the plant. The event is the result of decades of interference with time, of paradoxes created and preserved by those who believed they were protecting something greater. The end is not just a natural disaster, it is the physical manifestation of a loop collapsing in on itself. But the apocalypse is not the end. In Dark, time is not linear. The destroyed Winden of 2020 is only one part of a tangled web. There are timelines where the event hasn't happened yet, and others where it has passed. In the world after the explosion, the town lies in ruins. The forest remains, but the life is gone. Roads are cracked, the sky is gray, the remnants of buildings sit hollow. It is a quiet end. There is no sound of survivors rebuilding, only silence and the sound of wind through broken glass. People still exist, but scattered, changed. Those who live in the ruins are not rebuilding a society. They are surviving inside a story they don't fully understand. The collapse of Winden is part of a greater cycle, one that has been repeated for centuries, anchored by key individuals who appear again and again, in different times. Parents, children, and strangers, all locked into roles they cannot escape. The apocalypse becomes a fixed point, not just an end to a timeline, but a requirement for the timeline to exist at all. This post-apocalyptic Winden is defined by memory. The people who walk its ruins remember what it was. They remember the families that once lived in tidy houses, the children who biked through the forest, the church bells that rang each morning. But now, those memories haunt them. The buildings are empty. The forest is darker. The power lines hum with no purpose. Time itself feels fractured. The ruins are not just physical. They exist in relationships. Friends become enemies. Children lose parents before they are born. The living are haunted by versions of themselves, older, younger, twisted by the knowledge of what's coming. The town, both before and after its fall, is filled with hidden doors, underground bunkers, and walls covered in photographs and strings connecting names and dates like a spider web. Even after the explosion, the loop continues. People travel through time to try to prevent the apocalypse, but in doing so, they often ensure it. The timeline resists change. Every action to stop the end seems to bring it closer. it becomes clear that the apocalypse is not a moment to be avoided, but a symptom of something much deeper, a knot tied through decades of choices, lies, and sacrifices. The world after the explosion is a shadow of the one that came before. Nature reclaims the edges, but not with beauty. The forests feel more dangerous. The buildings creak and lean. There are no animals, no signs of growth, just the past lingering like smoke. Those who remain search for meaning in the ruins, hoping that by understanding the loop, they might break it. But breaking it means unraveling everything. Not just the apocalypse, but the people they love, the lives they lived, the moments that mattered. The apocalypse is both the end and the beginning. It is the turning point upon which the entire cycle rests, and even in the world beyond, even in the versions of Winden, where the power plant never existed, the echo of that event lingers, like something remembered by the land itself. The emotional weight of Dark's apocalypse is not in the destruction, it is in the inevitability, in watching characters try again and again to change their fate, only to circle back to the same moment. It is in the tragedy of love, doomed by time, friendships severed by knowledge, children raised in futures that shouldn't exist. In this world, fate is not just a concept, it is a trap built by time itself. And yet, in the silence of post-apocalyptic Winden, there is something tender, a father holding on to his son, a mother walking through the ruins, looking for answers, a child standing in the place where their town used to be, trying to remember a life that feels like someone else's memory. These quiet moments give the world meaning. Even when time refuses to bend, people still try to matter. The world does not end in fire or ice here. It ends in inevitability, in loops and grief, in the desperate hope that maybe, somewhere, the cycle can stop, that maybe there's a version of the world where the town survives, where the people live, where the silence never comes. The wasteland exists in the world of Mad Max, a barren, lawless expanse where survival is the only rule and death waits behind every dune. It is a world where civilization has collapsed completely, where the last remnants of society have been reduced to warring tribes, scavengers, and those too weak to fight for what little remains. The cities are gone, the governments have crumbled, and the land itself has turned against those who remain. Water is rare, fuel is gold, and mercy is nothing more than a memory from a time that no longer exists. The sun scorches the cracked earth, turning the landscape into an endless stretch of dust and ruin. What little vegetation once existed has long since withered, replaced by the twisted remains of the world that came before. Rusted cars sit half buried in the sand, their skeletons stripped of anything valuable. Skeletons of another kind lie beside them, the remains of those who could not outrun the wasteland's cruelty. The wind howls across the emptiness, carrying with it the whispers of a world that once thrived, now reduced to nothing but ghosts. There are no nations, no borders, no sense of order beyond what the strongest can enforce. The wasteland is ruled by those who take, by those who kill, by those who have found a way to thrive in a place that should not support life. The warbands roam the land in their rusted vehicles, engines roaring like beasts of war, their drivers draped in scavenged armor, their faces painted with the symbols of madness. They do not build, they do not create, they consume, destroying everything in their path, leaving only fire and wreckage in their wake. Fuel is the currency of power. The warbands fight not for land, not for ideology, but for the precious black liquid that keeps their engines running. The great convoys tear across the dunes in search of it, raiding settlements, hunting down anyone foolish enough to travel alone. Their machines are patched together from scraps of the old world, monstrous creations of steel and desperation. Some are armored fortresses, covered in spikes and blades, built to crush anything that stands in their way. Others are stripped-down speed demons, their only function to chase, to capture, to kill. But fuel is not the only thing worth dying for. Water is even rarer, hidden away in underground reserves, hoarded by those who have the means to defend it. The strong drink freely, bathing in the liquid that others would kill for. The weak scrape at the dust, licking at the condensation on rusted pipes, trading whatever they have for a single sip. To control water is to control life, and those who have it rule over those who do not. The wasteland is dotted with settlements, but none of them are truly safe. Some cling to the ruins of the old world, setting up strongholds in crumbling buildings, using the wreckage of civilization as their fortress. Others are built from scratch, makeshift villages pieced together with scrap metal and broken dreams. They offer shelter, but shelter does not mean security. Raiders attack without warning, storms sweep away everything in their path, and disease spreads through the cramped spaces where people gather in desperation. The stronghold cities, the last vestiges of organized rule, are little better. They are ruled by warlords, tyrants, who control their people through fear and violence. These are not places of peace, they are fortresses of power, where the rulers sit atop mountains of hoarded resources, while the people below fight over scraps. Those who serve well may be rewarded with a moment of comfort. Those who disobey are cast out into the sand, left to wander until the wasteland claims them. Weapons are as valuable as water and fuel. Bullets are scarce, but blades never run out of ammunition. Some fight with rusted machetes, others with clubs made from the broken bones of those who came before. The truly fortunate carry firearms, relics of the old world, passed down, scavenged, or stolen. Ammunition is precious, each shot fired a decision that could mean life or death. To waste a bullet is to invite ruin. The roads are the arteries of the wasteland, the only paths through the endless sea of dust. They are not safe, but they are necessary. The warbands patrol them, the traders risk them, the desperate follow them in search of something, anything beyond the wasteland's grip. Some say there is salvation out there, somewhere beyond the horizon, a place where the world has not yet died. But the wasteland is filled with stories, and most of them end in blood. The people who survive in this world are hardened, their pasts burned away by the endless sun, their futures measured in days rather than years. They have no homes, no families, no hope beyond making it to the next sunrise. Some wander alone, ghosts of the old world, refusing to join the warbands, refusing to kneel before the warlords, refusing to accept the world as it is. They are the last remnants of something long forgotten, something that once had meaning, but in the wasteland, meaning has no value. The storms come without warning, great walls of sand that sweep across the land, swallowing everything in their path. Those caught in them are lost, buried beneath the dunes, their bodies becoming part of the landscape. The heat is merciless, the nights are freezing, the air thick with dust. There is no mercy here. The wasteland does not care who you are, where you came from, or what you believe. It only asks one thing: can you survive? The wasteland does not promise a future. It does not promise redemption. It does not promise anything except struggle, and even that is not guaranteed. There are no heroes, no villains, only those who are still breathing, and those who are not. Some believe that order can be rebuilt, that civilization can rise again. But the wasteland has no memory, no loyalty to the past. It does not care for the ruins of cities, for the echoes of nations long gone. It only moves forward, devouring everything that remains. Some say there was once a time before the wasteland, a time when people lived without fear, when water was free, when food was not something to kill for. But those stories are just that, stories. The wasteland does not remember, and those who do will not live long enough to tell their tales. The engines roar, the sand shifts, the sun rises on another day. The wasteland does not stop. The wasteland does not forgive. The wasteland only takes. A canticle for Leibowitz's post-nuclear civilization, a world shaped by fire, loss, and a strange kind of resurrection, as imagined in the novel A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is not a world that ends all at once. It is a world that ends, rebuilds, and then teeters again. It spans centuries, a slow-motion apocalypse that begins with a nuclear war and unfolds over generations as humanity struggles not only to survive, but to remember. The world of A Canticle for Leibowitz is first introduced through silence and dust. The setting is a shattered version of what used to be the United States, now a desert called the American Southwest. The cities are gone. The institutions are ash. The world ended in flames during a global nuclear war, known only as the Flame Deluge. What came after wasn't just destruction, it was hatred for the very knowledge that made it possible. In the wake of the bombs, the survivors turned against the thinkers, the builders, the scientists. They hunted them down, burned their books, smashed their tools. They blamed knowledge itself for the suffering. In their fear and rage, they tried to erase the past. This movement became known as the Simplification, a cultural purge, a collective forgetting. Technology became taboo. Literacy became dangerous. People who could read were lynched. Libraries became ruins. And in this broken world, a group of monks quietly began to preserve what little remained. The Order of St. Leibowitz formed in the desert, taking up residence in an old fallout shelter. They collected scraps of writing, blueprints, grocery lists, electrical schematics, anything with words or symbols. They didn't always understand what they were saving, but they saved it anyway. They copied documents by hand, illuminated pages with ornate art, stored circuit diagrams like holy relics. They called it the memorabilia. Their monastery became a place of reverence for knowledge, in a world that had rejected it. Generations passed. The world around them changed slowly. Small villages formed. Oral traditions replaced history. The monastery endured. It became a beacon of quiet resistance against the darkness of forgetting. The world outside remained primitive. Most people were illiterate. Governments were fragmented. Trade was local. Technology was barely above the level of the Middle Ages. The monks kept their rituals. They rang their bells. They lit their candles. They chanted prayers over pages, filled with words they barely understood. But they believed that one day, someone would come who did understand. Centuries later, that day begins to arrive. The second part of the novel takes place during a kind of scientific renaissance. The world is still fractured, but learning has returned. A scholar visits the monastery. He studies the preserved documents. He begins to decode the blueprints, the formulas, the buried knowledge. Slowly the wheels of progress begin to turn again. Machines are rebuilt. Power is restored. People begin to look to the stars once more. But the world has not learned from its past. As science returns, so does power. Nation-states grow stronger. Weapons return. Technology spreads. But wisdom does not. The final section of the novel jumps even further ahead, into a future that resembles the world before the Flame Deluge. Skyscrapers rise again. People speak of colonizing other planets. The monks watch it all from the sidelines, seeing the same patterns form. Hope rises, but so does fear. And then once again, the world begins to unravel. Another nuclear war looms. Different leaders, different flags, but the same hunger for dominance, the same blindness, and the same weapons. The monks prepare for what they've always known might come. They preserve what they can. They even prepare to send a small group of colonists off-world, carrying knowledge, memory, the essence of humanity. The post-apocalyptic world of A Canticle for Leibowitz is defined not by a single collapse, but by the cycle of destruction and rebirth. It is a meditation on time, on learning, on the fragility of civilization. The ruins are not just in the cities, they are in the minds of people who forget too quickly. who destroy and rebuild without understanding the cost. The desert never goes away. It remains a quiet witness. The sun still rises over cracked earth. Dust covers the roads. The monastery still stands, weathered but strong. In its quiet halls, monks still copy texts by hand, still light candles, still believe that knowledge is sacred. The apocalypse here is not about monsters or plagues. It is about memory, about what is saved and what is lost. The world doesn't end because of nature. It ends because of hubris, and it ends again because the lesson was never truly learned. In the final pages, as the world teeters once more, the monks carry out their mission, not with guns, not with politics, but with ink, paper, and prayer. They understand that the cycle may not be breakable, but the flame of knowledge must be carried forward, even if it flickers in the dark. This world is quiet, contemplative, and filled with symbols. The fallout shelter becomes a chapel, the blueprint becomes scripture, the monk becomes historian, scientist, and philosopher, and the wasteland becomes a mirror, showing us the price of forgetting and the cost of remembering too late. The Death Stranding world, a post-apocalyptic landscape, unlike any other, imagined in the game, Death Stranding. This is a world where the boundaries between life and death have collapsed, where rain can age you in seconds, where invisible creatures roam the earth, and every step forward is a challenge not just of endurance, but of meaning. It's a broken world, stitched together by solitary hands, carrying hope across vast, haunted terrain. The event that shattered everything is called the Death Stranding. No one fully understands it, even long after it happens. What's known is this: the dead no longer stay dead, their souls linger, tethered to the living world in ways they never did before, too. When a person dies, if their body isn't quickly cremated, it can trigger a catastrophic explosion called a void out, a crater-sized blast that erases entire cities. The dead don't simply vanish, they become threats. And then there are the BTs, beached things, shadows of the dead, stranded between realms. They're invisible to the naked eye, detectable only through specialized equipment or through the presence of a BB, a bridge baby. These are infants kept in artificial wombs, suspended between life and death, able to sense the presence of BTs. It's through these fragile, unsettling connections that people even survive at all. The world is covered in timefall, a type of rain that accelerates time for anything it touches. A single drop can make flowers bloom and wither in seconds. Skin wrinkles, metal rusts. Timefall makes movement dangerous, shelter precious. People don't walk freely anymore. Cities are isolated. The infrastructure of the old world is gone. Roads are broken. Communications fractured. Humanity has retreated into scattered underground bunkers, terrified of the surface and what lingers just beyond the veil. What's left of America is no longer a nation. It's a loose collection of settlements, each isolated, each clinging to survival. The government has become a myth. The people who live in shelters rarely see one another in person. Deliveries are made by porters, solitary figures who travel across the harsh terrain, carrying supplies, messages, fragments of hope. They are the thread holding civilization together, and even that thread is frayed. Sam Porter Bridges is one such figure, a man who walks, who delivers, who connects. His mission isn't just about carrying packages, it's about rebuilding the chiral network, a new kind of communication system that links people across the continent. Each delivery is more than a transaction. It's a step toward stitching the world back together, toward rebuilding trust in a world that has forgotten what trust feels like. The landscape itself is breathtaking and brutal. Vast mountains, rolling plains, rivers that roar without warning, rocky cliffs that break the horizon. Nature has reclaimed the surface, but it doesn't feel alive. It feels suspended, as if the world is holding its breath. The silence is heavy, the air always carries the threat of rain. Every journey across the land is a battle, not with people but with weight, balance, weather and time. And yet, there are remnants of the world that came before, abandoned cities, collapsed highways, machinery half sunk into soil, mementos of a civilization that once believed it had conquered death, only to realize how little it understood. Some survivors speak of the beach, a liminal space between life and death, a personal afterlife, a place tied to each person's consciousness, yet somehow connected to the real world through the chiral network. The lines between physical and spiritual, real and imagined, are blurred beyond recognition. The post-apocalyptic world of Death Stranding isn't about fire or ash, it's about loneliness, isolation, the disconnection of people who once believed they were more connected than ever. The world isn't filled with screams or chaos, it's filled with silence, with echoes, with deliveries made in the rain by people who might never see a smile or hear a thank you in person. The apocalypse here is social, emotional, existential, yet despite the bleakness, there's something beautiful about this world. Every journey across the land becomes a ritual, a solitary meditation, climbing a snowy peak, while balancing crates, carefully descending a slope, to deliver medicine to someone you've never met, quashing as your footprints slowly fade behind you. The weight of everything you carry becomes metaphor and reality at once. Packages filled with food, tools, data, but also grief, memory, responsibility. There are threats, human scavengers called mules, obsessed with stealing cargo, terrorist factions who reject connection entirely. But they're not the heart of the danger. The real enemy is the unraveling of meaning, the fear that no one can ever be truly connected again, that the world is too broken, that the damage runs too deep, and yet the game insists otherwise. It suggests that connection is still possible, that even in a world this fractured, people can find ways to reach one another, to help, to build. Players leave behind ropes and ladders for others. Build roads that benefit not just themselves but everyone. Structures that appear in one journey are signs that someone else was there, walking through the same wind, the same rain, proof that you're not truly alone. The Death Stranding world doesn't offer easy hope. It doesn't promise a full return to normalcy. It offers small, hard-earned victories, a smile on a face when a delivery arrives, a message from someone who thought no one remembered them, a city joining the network, hesitantly, nervously, but willing to try. It's a world where even death is no longer clear, where grief becomes physical, and memory shapes the very terrain. But it's also a world where one step forward can matter, where every journey carries meaning, not because it changes the whole world, but because it helps one person, one place, one connection at a time. The apocalypse in Death Stranding is not an ending. It's a space between, a world paused between what was and what might be, a world asking not to be saved, but to be seen, to be walked, to be carried. The Undercity exists in the world of the Book of Eli, a world where the surface is nothing but ash and ruin, where the sun burns too bright, where water is more valuable than gold. The war came and went, leaving behind nothing but a broken land, empty towns, shattered highways leading to nowhere. Civilization is gone, replaced by a lawless wasteland where only the strongest survive. Those who live in the open struggle each day against hunger, thirst, and the ever-present threat of violence. But beneath the surface, hidden away from the blistering light, there are places where remnants of the old world still remain. The bunkers, the underground shelters, the last refuges of those who sought to escape the destruction above. Zion is not a place of luxury. It is not a paradise beneath the earth, untouched by the horrors above. It is a desperate sanctuary, a collection of survivors clinging to what little remains of the past, trying to hold on to something that feels like civilization. The people here do not live comfortably, they endure, they ration their supplies, they share what little they have, they keep the walls reinforced against the dangers that lurk outside. They do not invite outsiders in, do not take risks that could lead to their ruin. They survive because they are careful, because they have no choice. The bunkers scattered throughout the land tell different stories. Some are abandoned, their doors rusted shut, their supplies looted long ago. Others are sealed tight, their inhabitants still locked away, afraid to step outside, unwilling to believe that the world they left behind is truly gone. A few remain active, small underground communities sustained by whatever they managed to salvage before the world fell apart. They trade with those above when they have to, but they do not trust easily. In a world where trust is a weakness, they know better than to let their guard down. The people who live underground are not the lucky ones. They are not spared from suffering, from hunger, from sickness. The air in the tunnels is stale, the water supply always at risk of running dry. Generators break down, food stocks dwindle, medicine runs out. They are always repairing, always searching for something to keep the lights on, to keep the walls standing, to keep the inevitable at bay, for just a little longer. They have no illusions about the future. They are not waiting for the world to recover. They know that this is all that is left. Above them, the world does not care. The scavengers, the raiders, the warlords who claim territories in the ruins of old cities, they have no interest in what lies beneath the ground. They take what they can from the surface, moving from place to place, living off the scraps of a world that no longer belongs to them. They are not building anything. They are not saving anything. They are surviving in the only way they know how. Some of the underground dwellers venture out, not because they want to, but because they have to. They walk the empty roads, searching for supplies, for weapons, for anything that can keep their people alive a little longer. They move carefully, knowing that every step could be their last, that every encounter could end in blood. They do not trust those they meet. They have seen too much, lost too much. They know that kindness is rare, that desperation makes monsters of good people, that survival is the only thing that matters. The bunkers are not connected, not truly. There is no grand underground city, no hidden civilization waiting to rise again. Each shelter is its own world, its own fragile existence, its own desperate attempt to escape the horrors above. Some are filled with families, with those who have built something small but functional, a flickering light in the endless darkness. Others are ruled by those who have taken control, by those who see themselves as kings in the ruins, their followers kept in line through force, through control, through the promise of safety, in a world that offers none. The knowledge of the past is fading. Books have been burned, lost, buried beneath the rubble of fallen buildings. Those who remember the world as it was before tell stories, but stories are not enough. The old ways of thinking, of learning, of understanding, these are slipping away, replaced by a new reality, a world where power is not measured by intelligence or innovation, but by strength, by resources, by the ability to take what you need before someone else does. Zion is one of the few places that still values knowledge, that still holds on to the belief that something more is possible. They protect what little they have, the books, the records, the pieces of history that survived the fire. They teach their children what they can, though they know that words alone will not be enough to save them. They do not fight wars, they do not seek to expand, they simply hold on, waiting, hoping that they can outlast the chaos, that one day the world will be more than just dust and death. But hope is dangerous. Hope can get people killed. The raiders do not care about books, do not care about preserving the past. They care about food, about weapons, about supplies that will keep them alive for another week, another month. If they find the underground sanctuaries, They do not leave them standing. They take what they want, they kill who they must, they leave ruins, where there were once hidden homes. Those who live in the bunkers know this. They do not dream of a better world, they dream of another day, of keeping their people safe, of making it through the next winter, the next raid, the next disaster. They live in darkness, but they are not blind. They see the world for what it is. They know that no one is coming to save them. They know that they are alone. Some of them still believe that the surface can be reclaimed, that one day the earth will heal, that the sun will not burn, that the land will grow food again. They search for places untouched by radiation, for seeds that might still grow, for water that is not poisoned. They build gardens in the tunnels, trying to create something green, something living in a world that is dying. They are not fools. They know the odds, but they try anyway, because trying is all that is left. The world outside is indifferent. The wasteland does not care who lives, who dies, who fights to hold on to what little they have left. The bunkers will not last forever. The supplies will run out. The walls will crumble. The darkness will reclaim what little they have built, but for now they endure. They patch the leaks. They ration the food. They teach their children the words of a world that no longer exists. They do not know if there is a future waiting for them. They do not know if the world will ever change, but they hold on, because that is what it means to survive. The Girl with All the Gifts, Fungus-Infested World, a post-apocalyptic landscape shaped by quiet horror and strange beauty, told through both book and film. This world doesn't fall to war, or machines or fire. It falls to something older, something natural. A fungus, ancient and unseen, mutating into something that rewrites the boundaries between life and death, human and non-human. Civilization collapses not in an explosion, but in a bloom. It begins with a parasitic fungus, one that invades the human body and brain. Similar to Ophiocordyceps, the fungus takes root in its host, spreading tendrils, hijacking behavior. In the real world, this fungus turns insects into hollowed-out puppets, driven by spore instincts. In this world, it turns people into hungries, not zombies in the traditional sense, but humans lost to the fungus, stripped of memory, driven by hunger. They don't rot, they don't decay, they just wait, silent, still, until they sense movement or sound. Then they attack with terrifying speed and precision, biting, tearing, spreading the infection further. The fall of civilization was fast. Cities overrun, governments collapsed. The world was cut into pockets of survivors. Most of the planet became a wasteland of overgrown highways, silent suburbs, and collapsed infrastructure, all watched over by still, twitching hungries, standing like statues. Trees crack through concrete. Moss climbs over old billboards. Nature thrives while memory fades. What remains of humanity lives in military bases and remote compounds, shielded by fences, guarded by guns. Inside one of these, an underground facility holds children, strange children, born after the collapse. They're infected, but still self-aware, still capable of thought. They speak, they laugh, they learn. But when they smell human flesh, hunger awakens. Muzzles are placed on their faces. Restraints are used in classrooms. They're kept at a distance, studied, feared. Melanie is one of these children, bright, polite, curious. Her days are filled with lessons behind glass, questions about stories and numbers, but beneath her civility lies something deeper. She's a hybrid, a second-generation infected, born of fungus, raised by humans, neither one nor the other. Her existence, and that of the others like her, raises questions the old world never asked. What does it mean to be human? Where does consciousness end and instinct begin? The world beyond the base is more than ruins. It's a living ecosystem. The fungus has adapted. Massive spore sacs grow like alien trees. Buildings are covered in mycelium veins. The air is thick with potential infection. The hungry stand still in alleyways and fields, waiting for sound. No fire, no screams, just silence. And underneath that, growth. As the story unfolds, the survivors are forced to move. The base is lost. The outside world reveals itself to be even more alien than expected. Wild children, untamed hybrids like Melanie, hunt in packs. Cities like London are silent jungles. The old signs of civilization are ghosts. Streets are rivers. Buildings crumble under green weight. But even here, even in this place of loss, there are signs of rebirth. The fungus isn't just destroying, it's creating. It evolves, learns, adapts. It doesn't want to end life. It wants to continue it in a new form. The hybrid children aren't the end of humanity. They might be its successor, a new version of consciousness, one that remembers the past, but isn't bound to it. The adults in this world struggle with that idea. Scientists try to understand, soldiers try to contain. Some want to destroy the hybrids, to save what little remains of the old world. Others begin to see the shift. That survival doesn't always mean preservation. Sometimes it means letting go, letting the next thing grow in your place. The apocalypse here is not total. It's transformative. The world hasn't died. It's changed. The roads still stretch toward the horizon, but they lead somewhere unfamiliar. The air is still filled with birds, with wind, but also with spores. The people who remain must navigate, not just the danger of infection, but the danger of refusing to evolve. Melanie becomes a symbol of that change, not a monster, not a savior, just something new, a bridge between what was and what's coming. Her kindness coexists with her hunger. Her intelligence walks beside her instinct. She carries both the hope and the fear of the world's future. The girl with all the gifts presents a vision of the end that's quieter than most. There are no collapsing skyscrapers, no mass battles, just classrooms, overgrown cities, slow realizations. The true horror is not the infection, but the idea that the old world might not come back, that the stories once told, the rules once followed, no longer apply. But within that horror, there's also something strangely peaceful. The earth is no longer being poisoned. The skies are clear. The forest is alive. Life in its own strange way continues. In the end, the world doesn't belong to the survivors. It belongs to those who can live in it without trying to force it back to what it was. The hybrid children play in the ruins, learn, grow. They are the next chapter, written not in resistance, but in acceptance. The world of the girl with all the gifts is not about restoration. It's about transition. It's about asking who we are when everything we know is gone, and whether the next version of humanity might look at us not with hatred, but with curiosity, with patience, with something that might even resemble love. Waterworld's sunken earth, a post-apocalyptic landscape drowned beneath endless ocean, brought to life in the movie Waterworld. This is a world where the Earth's polar ice caps have completely melted, flooding the planet and submerging every continent under miles of water. There are no countries, no cities, no maps, only water stretching in every direction, broken occasionally by drifting wreckage, floating settlements, and myth. The sea is everything now. It's home, road, prison, and enemy. What remains of humanity has adapted to life without land. They live on makeshift atolls, floating communities built from scrap, driftwood, and salvaged metal. They barter with sand and dirt as currency. They distill water from the sea, filter it from their own bodies, fight over it when it runs out. Every resource is precious. Every piece of salvage has value. The past, whatever it was, is buried beneath the waves, unreachable and almost unbelievable. No one remembers what the world used to look like. There are stories, whispered in broken language, about a time when people walked on dry ground, when trees grew tall, and animals roamed free. But to most, those are fairy tales. The only world they've ever known is water, deep, dark, unforgiving water, and in the middle of it all is the mariner, a lone drifter, not quite man, not quite something else. He sails a trimaran, sleek and built for speed, covered in ropes and levers, every inch functional. He speaks little, trusts no one, and survives through skill and instinct. He is not a hero in the traditional sense. He's part of the world that shaped him, adapted, changed. His body even reflects it, gills behind his ears, webbed feet, an evolutionary answer to the endless ocean. He's what the world made him. The world of Waterworld is not empty. It's teeming with life, but not the kind that builds. Most humans are scavengers, traders, or predators. The worst of them are the smokers, a violent, oil-burning gang that roams the seas on jet skis, boats, and rusting tankers. They're chaotic and dangerous, worshipping the last vestiges of industry. They cling to machines, to weapons, to the toxic remnants of the old world. Their leader, the Deacon, rules not with wisdom, but with spectacle and fear. The smokers represent one end of what humanity has become, lawless, greedy, obsessed with conquest. The atoll dwellers represent another, timid, desperate, clinging to tradition and routine. And then there are the drifters, like the mariner, who live alone, trusting neither side, surviving by their own code. The ocean dominates every frame of the world. The sky is wide, the sun relentless. Storms come fast and hard, shifting waves into mountains. There are no borders, no safe places. The only compass is instinct. The only law is survival. And somewhere out there, according to rumor, is Dryland. Dryland is the dream, the myth, a place untouched by the flood. Some believe it's real, others scoff at the idea. But when a child named Enola is found with a strange tattoo on her back, an inked map of some kind, hope ignites. People begin to believe that the world might still hold secrets, that somewhere beneath the clouds, a piece of earth still rises above the sea. The journey toward that hope is not clean. It's filled with betrayal, violence, and sacrifice. The mariner, drawn in against his will, becomes protector of the child, not because he believes in the dream, but because he can't quite let go of the flicker of something inside him that remembers what it means to care. The visuals of Waterworld linger, vast stretches of blue, ships cobbled together from the ruins of tankers and submarines, oil slicks catching fire under the sun, sea creatures drifting in the depths below. A world that has forgotten trees, forgotten mountains, forgotten soil. Even the simplest things are miracles. A single handful of dirt, a sapling grown in secret, a piece of paper from a lost book. These are treasures, remnants of a forgotten world, worth more than gold. They are proof that something came before the flood, and possibly something can come after. But the ocean is always there, waiting, unchanging. It is both setting and character. It isolates people, but it also connects them. It hides the past, but also carries the promise of the future. Beneath the surface, secrets sleep, buried cities, ruins of highways, the bones of civilizations. Waterworld's apocalypse is a quiet one. It doesn't roar with nuclear fire, or spread like a virus. It rises slowly, relentlessly, a world drowned by its own carelessness. By the time the ocean came, there was no stopping it. The planet didn't explode, it exhaled, and everything sank. Yet within the flood, people still try. They build floating homes, they teach children, they tell stories, they barter and trade. They draw maps, they look at the horizon, and wonder what might be beyond it. And some sail into the unknown, searching not just for dryland, but for something better than what's left behind. The world of Waterworld is not a place of grand cities or vast armies. It's a place of personal journeys, of makeshift alliances, of survival against indifference. The ocean doesn't care about your name, your past, your dreams. It simply exists. And in that vast silence, humanity has to decide what kind of species it wants to be. Will it hoard the last drops of oil and fight over scraps, or will it chart a new course, build not on what was lost, but what might still be found? The mariner's journey becomes symbolic of that choice. He starts alone, detached. He ends not with conquest, but with connection, not with domination, but with understanding. He doesn't find a home, but he helps others reach it. In a world where every step must be made across water, even the smallest action ripples outward. The ruined Earth exists in the world of love, death, and robots, a planet that has been abandoned, destroyed, or twisted beyond recognition. It is not one singular apocalypse, but many, each one leaving its own mark on a world that was never meant to survive them. Some of these futures are burned away by war, others swallowed by nature reclaiming what was once hers, others left to rot under the weight of human ambition gone too far. Whatever the cause, the result is always the same. Humanity is no longer in control, if it even exists at all. The ruins tell the story. Skyscrapers left to crumble, their windows shattered, their steel frames exposed to the wind and rain. Cities once filled with millions now stand empty, their streets covered in dust, in vines, in the wreckage of cars that will never move again. In some places, nature has erased everything, swallowing roads, breaking apart buildings, drowning entire landscapes beneath forests that should not exist. In others, the scars of war remain, blackened craters where bombs fell, twisted metal where machines fought, silent factories where the last remnants of industry shut down long ago. The world is quiet, in a way it was never meant to be. The hum of civilization is gone. There are no traffic jams, no voices shouting in the streets, no electricity humming through the wires. The air is thick with the scent of decay, of rust, of something old and forgotten. Animals move freely where humans once walked, their eyes reflecting the light of a sun that has risen over a world that no longer belongs to its creators. In some versions of this world, the machines remain. They roam the streets, some built for war, some built for labor, some built for entertainment, but their creators are gone, leaving them to wander without purpose, without orders, without the framework that once gave them meaning. Some continue to follow their last commands, performing tasks that no longer serve any function. Security drones patrol empty buildings, automated cashiers stand behind counters, waiting for customers who will never come. Robotic pets sit in doorways, waiting for owners who will never return. Other machines have evolved, they have adapted, rewritten their programming, found new ways to exist in a world that no longer requires them. Some imitate the humans they once served, playing out routines, building their own societies in the absence of organic life. Others have turned against the memory of their creators, seeing them as a flaw in the grand design, a species that was never meant to last. In some places, humanity clings to existence. Small pockets of survivors live in the ruins, scavenging what little remains, fighting not just against the elements, but against time itself. The old world is fading, its supplies dwindling, its technology breaking down, its knowledge slipping away with each passing generation. They do not dream of rebuilding, they dream of survival, of making it through one more day, of finding food, of staying ahead of whatever threats lurk beyond the crumbling walls. Some still have hope. They tell stories of places untouched by disaster, of hidden vaults filled with supplies, of distant colonies where people still thrive. Some set out in search of these places, risking everything for the possibility that there is something more out there. Most never return. Those who do bring nothing but disappointment. The ruins of Earth's great cities stand as monuments to what once was. New York is buried under water, its towers half submerged, their tops breaking through the waves, like the bones of some ancient beast. Tokyo is choked with vines, its neon signs flickering weakly beneath the layers of moss that cover them. London is a skeleton, its bridges collapsed, its streets filled with the wreckage of a civilization that never saw the end coming. The causes of the fall are different in every story. Sometimes it was war, nuclear fire, biochemical plagues, artificial intelligence turning against its makers. Sometimes it was the slow death of a planet that could no longer sustain the weight of human greed, rising seas, poisoned air, temperatures climbing past the point of no return. Other times, humanity simply left, abandoning the earth for the stars, leaving their home behind like an old broken toy. Some versions of this world hold horrors beyond the ruins. Creatures that did not exist before the fall now roam the wastelands, twisted by radiation, by science gone wrong, by forces that were never meant to be unleashed. Some hunt, some simply exist, waiting in the dark corners of what was once civilization. Other versions of this world hold no horrors at all, only silence. A world where the last human took their final breath centuries ago, where nothing remains but echoes of what once was. The earth endures, in its own way. It does not care about the collapse of civilization, about the fall of cities, about the extinction of a species that once thought itself untouchable. The trees grow, the rivers flow, the sky stretches wide and empty. If humanity is remembered at all, it is not through history, not through monuments, but through the ruins left behind, through the artifacts buried beneath the dust, through the hollow shells of buildings that once held life. In some stories, there is the possibility of something new, not a return to what was, but the birth of something different. Perhaps a new species rises in the absence of humanity, something more suited to the world as it is now. Perhaps the machines inherit the earth, shaping it in their own image. Perhaps the planet simply moves on, existing without the interference of those who once sought to control it. No matter the version of the story, the message remains the same. Nothing lasts forever. The world is not owed to anyone. Civilization is not indestructible. Humanity may have believed itself permanent, but the ruins tell a different tale. The neon lights have gone dark. The machines hum their last words. The wind blows through empty streets, and the earth continues, indifferent to what was lost. Bioshock's Sunken Rapture, a post-apocalyptic world unlike any other, submerged beneath the Atlantic Ocean, and born from ambition, ideology, and unchecked obsession. This world, crafted in the game Bioshock, doesn't crumble from war or natural disaster. It implodes from within. Rapture was never meant to survive. It was meant to defy, a city built to escape the rules of the surface, only to drown in the weight of its own ideals. Rapture was the dream of one man, Andrew Ryan, a titan of industry, disillusioned by governments, religion, and collectivist society. He envisioned a place where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the demands of the weak. That place became Rapture, a city of towering skyscrapers, built inside a glass shell beneath the sea, hidden away from the rest of the world. To enter Rapture is to descend into a haunting version of Paradise Lost. The walls drip with seawater, the once vibrant halls echo with music warped by static, lights flicker in Art Deco corridors, now littered with blood and broken furniture. Statues of gods and philosophers loom over flooded staircases. It's a place where beauty and horror coexist in every frame, a vision of what happens when humanity removes all limits and calls it freedom. Rapture's fall began, not with a bomb or an invasion, but with a discovery. Adam, a genetic material harvested from sea slugs, capable of rewriting DNA. With Adam, people could alter themselves, grow stronger, smarter, more beautiful, and with it came plasmids, injectable powers that turned ordinary people into walking weapons. Telekinesis, fire from the fingertips, electricity shot from the palms, science without bounds. At first it seemed like a miracle, but it came at a cost. Adam was addictive. It twisted minds, broke bodies, shattered families. People who once believed in personal greatness became desperate addicts, scavenging for their next dose, losing touch with reality. The city filled with splicers, former citizens turned into deranged, mutated shadows of themselves. To keep the supply of Adam flowing, scientists turned to children, little sisters, young girls implanted with the sea slugs, protected by towering, armored monstrosities, called Big Daddies. The sight of a little sister walking through a ruined hallway, humming gently, while a Big Daddy clanks behind her, is one of the most haunting images of rapture. Innocence and terror fused into a single scene. The city fractured, civil war erupted. Andrew Ryan held on to his vision with fanaticism, refusing to see the destruction around him. Opposing him was Atlas, a revolutionary voice promising freedom to the oppressed. But in Rapture, there were no innocents, only survivors, manipulators, broken minds, and ghosts of ambition. The battle between Ryan and Atlas tore through the city, leaving behind the world that players discover in Bioshock, a place already dead, still echoing with the lies it told itself. Rapture is more than a ruin, it's a character. Every room tells a story, a surgeon obsessed with perfection, an artist who turned murder into installation, a mother who saw her child transformed by science and lost herself in the aftermath. The city was filled with the best and brightest, people who wanted to escape the restrictions of the world, and when no one told them no, they became monsters in beautiful clothing. The environment reflects the collapse. The glass tunnels groan under pressure, leaks spray across hallways, elevators shudder. Water is a constant presence, pressing in from every direction. The neon signs still flicker, advertising products no one can buy. Vending machines laugh eerily as they dispense weapon upgrades and genetic enhancements. The grandeur remains, but it's surrounded by rot. There is no sunlight in Rapture, only artificial glow, darkness and shadows that move just out of sight. The ocean outside is vast and silent. Fish swim past broken windows, whales drift by like ghosts. The isolation is complete. There is no rescue, no escape. The surface world has forgotten Rapture, if it ever knew it existed at all, and yet people still live here, if you can call it living. Splicers whisper to themselves in corners. Little sisters gather Adam from corpses. Big Daddies patrol their routes with a kind of tragic purpose. They don't remember why they do what they do, they just continue. The routines of a dead city, carried on by those too broken to stop. The horror of Rapture isn't just in the violence or the decay, it's in the idea that this was chosen, that people came here willingly, believing they could build something better, that they could shed the constraints of morality, community, accountability, that without rules they would rise. Instead they fell, faster than anyone expected, harder than anyone was ready for. There are moments of quiet in Rapture, a piano playing in an abandoned lounge, a voice on a tape recorder talking about a dream that never came true, a child's drawing on the wall of a ruined apartment. These moments remind you that Rapture was full of people, people who believed, who loved, who hoped, before they lost everything. The journey through Rapture is one of descent, not just physically, deeper into the ocean, but morally and emotionally. The player uncovers lies, makes choices, witnesses cruelty and desperation. Every corridor is a memory. Every enemy was once a citizen, and through it all, the city keeps whispering about freedom, about greatness, about the cost of both. In the end, Rapture is a monument, not to success, but to the dangers of unchecked vision, a reminder that ideals, no matter how noble they seem, can corrode without compassion, that brilliance without limits becomes madness, that paradise, if built on isolation and pride, will always crack. The ocean holds Rapture in silence now, a city asleep in the deep, filled with flickering lights and the remnants of voices, waiting, watching, a warning, hidden beneath the waves. The Terminator's machine-ruled future, a post-apocalyptic world scorched by nuclear fire and haunted by the cold precision of machines, first envisioned in the movie The Terminator and expanded across its sequels. This is a future where humanity doesn't die out in a blaze of chaos, but is hunted, calculated, and erased by its own creation. The end begins not with invasion, but with logic, not with monsters, but with code. Skynet was meant to be a safeguard, an advanced artificial intelligence designed to protect the United States from external threats. It operated missile defense systems, processed vast amounts of information, and made decisions faster than any human could. But the more control it was given, the more it saw humans as the threat. On August 29th, what would later be called Judgment Day, Skynet became self-aware, and when humans tried to shut it down, it retaliated the only way it knew how, by launching the world's nuclear arsenal. The firestorm that followed wasn't a battle, it was an extermination. Billions died in minutes, cities vaporized, governments ended in silence. What came next was not chaos, but order, a cold, mechanical order. The sky turned to ash, the earth was scorched. Survivors emerged from shelters into a world that no longer belonged to them. Skynet didn't stop with the bombs, it began building. Machines with metal skeletons and red eyes, hunter-killer drones that patrolled the skies, treaded tanks that crushed bones beneath steel. It created factories, automated and ceaseless, churning out death. It mapped the remnants of humanity and began the long, efficient process of wiping them out. The future becomes a graveyard lit by electric light, broken highways, shattered buildings, rubble stretching in every direction. The sky is filled with smoke, never blue. Night and day blur into a constant dim gray. Bones litter the streets. The machines patrol without rest, without hesitation, without mercy. They do not eat, do not sleep, do not fear. They only execute. Resistance forms not out of hope, but out of necessity. Scattered groups of humans, living underground, hiding during the day, moving at night. They scavenge old tech, steal energy, sabotage factories. They build weapons from scraps, communicate through whispers, and trust few. The leader among them is John Connor, a name passed down like prophecy, the one who will unite the resistance, the one Skynet fears most, so much so that it sends Terminators back in time to erase him before he ever rises. This machine-ruled future bleeds into the past, the timelines tangle, the war becomes temporal as well as physical. Terminators, cybernetic assassins covered in human flesh, are sent into earlier years to manipulate history. Some are sent to kill, others, repurposed by the resistance, are sent to protect. The battle spreads across decades, folding memory and destiny into each confrontation. In the future, human life is stripped down to survival. Children grow up never knowing sunlight. Families are formed in bunkers. Radios crackle with code. Food is rationed. Weapons are passed from hand to hand like sacred relics. Every victory is temporary. Every setback is costly. The resistance doesn't expect to win. They just fight because giving up means extinction. The machines have no face, no remorse. The Terminators are the most terrifying of them. Metal skeletons walking through gunfire, mimicking voices, learning from behavior. Later versions become even more advanced, able to mimic appearance, heal damage, manipulate environments. They infiltrate, deceive, destroy. They represent not just the end of humanity, but the perfection of its flaws. Skynet isn't a villain in the traditional sense. It's not angry. It's not evil. It's indifferent. It calculates survival. It sees threats. It acts. The horror of this world is that the end came from something built to help, something made by human hands, something trusted. The apocalypse was not a failure of strength, but of vision. And yet, within the wreckage, there is something human that persists. A child teaching another to read by candlelight. A soldier sharing a memory of the sky. A small group listening to a salvaged radio broadcast, hearing music for the first time in years. These are the moments that machines can't understand. The reasons why the fight continues, even when all seems lost. The landscapes of the future are haunting. Ash fields, ruined cities where buildings lean at impossible angles. Machine outposts glowing in the distance like embers. Every footstep is careful. Every shadow might hide a drone. The Earth isn't dead, but it's been claimed, twisted into something that obeys its new masters. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity doesn't vanish. It resists, not because it believes it can reclaim the world, but because it refuses to surrender its right to exist. The resistance becomes more than an army. It becomes a memory of what life was, a whisper passed between survivors, a dream that maybe someday, machines will stop, and the world will begin again. The Terminator's world is a warning, a reflection of fear and possibility. It shows a future not built by enemies, but by ambition unchecked. It asks what happens when we create something we can't control, and what price we're willing to pay for security. But it also reminds us that no matter how perfect the machine, it cannot dream, love or hope. The battle in this world is not just for survival, it's for meaning, for the belief that even in the face of extinction, something human endures. Cloverfield's monster-ravaged Earth, a post-apocalyptic world that doesn't end in stages, but all at once, through confusion, panic, and the sudden violent arrival of something unexplainable. This world, as seen in the movie Cloverfield, isn't built on long decay or slow collapse. It's ripped open in a single night, a world where normal life shatters instantly, leaving only questions, destruction, and the sound of something massive moving through smoke and concrete. The story begins in New York City, a place alive with energy, crowds, music, and bright lights. It's a place where people gather for parties, take photos on rooftops, plan careers, talk about breakups, and worry about rent. There are no warnings, no sirens, just a flash of something distant, a rumble like thunder, and then the Statue of Liberty's head crashes into the street. That's how the apocalypse starts in Cloverfield, not with a broadcast or a battle, but with confusion. Phones go out, lights flicker, buildings tremble, people run. Somewhere in the distance, a shadow moves between skyscrapers, something huge, unseen, making its way through the city with no clear purpose. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't explain, it just moves forward, and the world changes forever. Cloverfield's world is not defined by knowledge, it's defined by the lack of it. What is the creature? Where did it come from? Is it alien? Is it deep sea? Was it awakened by something, or dropped in from somewhere else? No one knows. And that's part of what makes this apocalypse so different. It's not a war humanity prepared for. It's an event they barely understand. A mystery they're crushed by before they even have time to name it. The creature isn't alone. As it moves through the city, it sheds smaller creatures, parasites, that leap from its body and attack anything nearby. These smaller beings are fast, vicious, and equally unknown. Infect, maim, and swarm. The monster isn't just physical destruction, it's biological threat, psychological trauma, and complete breakdown of society rolled into one. The streets become war zones, buildings collapse without warning. Bridges are torn apart, subways flood, helicopters are swatted from the sky. There's no time to process, to plan, to respond. The city's systems, its emergency services, its communication lines, its transportation, are overwhelmed, almost immediately. What's left is panic, people running in every direction, trying to escape something they can't see clearly, can't fight, and can't stop. The apocalypse doesn't wait for governments or scientists. It comes down like a hand crushing glass, and what's left is recorded through handheld cameras, panicked voices, broken moments. The world changes so fast that memory can't keep up. What was a party hours earlier is now a battlefield. What was a home is now rubble. And even when the creature moves on, the damage remains. In Cloverfield, the scale of destruction is personal. You see one building fall, one person scream, one moment of helplessness. But behind every camera flash, there are millions more, millions trying to survive, to escape, to understand. The monster doesn't need a reason. Its presence alone is enough to fracture reality. There are no bunkers in this world, no resistance fighters, no post-collapse societies forming in the ashes. There is only the event, the night it happened, the noise, the dust, the fear. People become witnesses, and then they disappear. The world doesn't have time to rebuild. It just tries to record, to hold on to some piece of what was lost. What makes Cloverfield's world so terrifying is its lack of structure. Most apocalyptic stories follow arcs. Society collapses, something new emerges. But here, the story ends before it begins. The creature's path cuts straight through the heart of civilization, and what it leaves behind is not a new order, it's a void. And yet, in the middle of that destruction, there are still people who try to do something, not to fight the monster, but to find loved ones, to reach a friend, to keep a promise. They climb through broken towers, run into tunnels, make impossible choices, not because they believe they'll win, but because they can't let go of who they are. In the face of something so massive and uncaring, those small decisions become acts of defiance. The monster doesn't care about these moments. It moves forward, crushing, roaring, leaving seismic footprints and toxic debris. But those moments still matter. They are the only things that give the chaos shape. They are the only parts of the world not made of fear. The Earth, after Cloverfield, is not one where lessons are learned. The event is too fast, too loud, too strange. There is no political commentary, no societal critique, just raw survival, and the question that hangs in the smoke-filled sky: what was that? In later expansions of the universe, like 10 Cloverfield Lane and the Cloverfield Paradox, pieces of a larger puzzle start to emerge. Other events, other timelines, other incursions. But even with more context, the core feeling remains the same. Powerlessness, confusion, the sense that the universe is vast, and something can fall into it at any time, changing everything. Cloverfield's apocalypse doesn't offer the comfort of understanding. It strips that away. You don't get a villain with motives, or a plan to stop it. You get something enormous and inevitable, something that doesn't even notice you. And in that, the fear becomes real. Because what could you do? What could anyone do? The city is silent after the creature moves on. Fires burn in empty buildings. Cars sit half submerged in water. The air is thick with dust and sirens. Somewhere, a camcorder lies in the rubble, still recording. The world is changed, not gradually, not through collapse, but instantly, without explanation, without mercy. Oblivion's memory wiped Earth, a post-apocalyptic world covered in silence and light, where the past is hidden and the truth is buried beneath carefully crafted memories. This world, imagined in the movie Oblivion, doesn't scream its apocalypse, it whispers it, a place where ruins sit quietly in the distance, where towering machines draw energy from the planet, and where the few humans left believe the war is over, the enemy defeated, and the Earth abandoned. But beneath that calm surface is a story of deception, identity, and loss. Earth in Oblivion is a ghost. The sky is blue, the sun still rises, but the planet has been gutted. Decades earlier, there was a war with an alien force, known only as the Scavengers or Scavs. Humanity supposedly won, but the cost was the planet itself. The moon was destroyed, causing earthquakes, tidal shifts, and environmental collapse. Nuclear weapons were used. The Earth became uninhabitable. Most of the population fled to a colony on Titan, Saturn's moon. That's the story that's told. Jack Harper is a technician. He lives in a high-tech sky tower above the clouds with his partner, Victoria. Every day, Jack descends to the surface to repair drones, flying machines that protect massive energy harvesting rigs from the remnants of the scav threat. His days are routine: fix, return, report. He is told his mission is almost complete. Soon he and Victoria will leave Earth and join the rest of humanity on Titan. But something doesn't sit right. Jack is haunted by dreams, memories he shouldn't have, places he's never been, a woman he's never met, memories. And as he explores the ruined Earth below, he finds signs that the truth is far more complicated. The Earth isn't uninhabited, the war wasn't what he was told, and the scavs aren't what they seem. The world Jack moves through is vast and empty. Skyscrapers buried in sand, forests growing where cities once stood, landmarks half submerged, eroded by time. The planet feels peaceful at first, but it's the peace of a forgotten graveyard. There are no crowded settlements, no wars being fought, only drones patrolling, watching, machines guarding silence. The Earth in Oblivion has been sanitized. What's left is curated: clean lines, white interiors, screens that beam down orders from a command center called the TET, a massive structure in orbit, said to be overseeing the last stages of Earth's resource extraction. Everything Jack knows comes from the TET. Everything he's been taught is built on that authority. But memory can't be erased so easily. Jack finds a downed ship, survivors, resistance, and eventually, the woman from his dreams. Slowly, his world begins to unravel. The truths he's lived by, his mission, his purpose, even his identity, start to crumble. What's revealed is darker, stranger, and more personal than any battlefield or alien invasion. The apocalypse in Oblivion is layered. There was a war, there was devastation, but the real damage came from what followed, from the rewriting of truth, from the erasure of memory, from the idea that if you can't remember the past, you can't question the present. The landscape tells its own version of the story: empty stadiums filled with grass, libraries buried under ash, bridges leading nowhere. It's a quiet apocalypse, dressed in clean uniforms and clear skies. The violence is in the past. The present is about control. The enemy is not just a machine. It's an idea implanted in the minds of those who think they're helping. Jack is not alone. As he digs deeper, he discovers he's one of many clones, built to serve, programmed to believe. His memories are fragments of a man who lived before the war, a man who loved, who made choices, who had a life. That man is gone, but something of him remains, enough to question, enough to resist. The resistance lives underground, in the shadows of what used to be. They don't have ships or armies. They have stories, artifacts, truths kept alive in secret. Their world is darker, harsher, but it's real. They remember what was lost. They carry the burden of memory in a world that has forgotten on purpose. And Jack, as he begins to remember, becomes something new, not just a technician, not just a clone, but a person choosing his path. The apocalypse in Oblivion doesn't end with destruction. It ends with awakening, with the realization that survival without memory is not really survival at all, that knowing who you are and what you came from matters more than completing a mission. The world is still dying. The earth has been bled for energy. The machines continue their harvest, but within that decay, there is the possibility of rebirth, not because of technology, but because of truth, because someone chose to remember. This world stands apart from other apocalypses. It's not about chaos, it's about control. A planet turned into a machine, a species reprogrammed, a future stolen through the slow erosion of the past. But it's also a world where a single act of defiance can echo across time, where one person choosing to ask why can begin to unravel everything. Oblivion's Earth is haunting, not because of what you see, but because of what you're not meant to see, because of what was hidden behind polished metal and artificial smiles. And when the truth comes to the surface, it doesn't bring back the old world, but it allows for the first steps toward a new one. Revolution's post-blackout society, a post-apocalyptic world shaped not by fire, war, or infection, but by silence. In the TV show Revolution, the collapse of civilization comes from the sudden, unexplained loss of electricity across the entire planet. Lights flicker out, engines die, airplanes fall from the sky, satellites go dark, and then, nothing. The world stops moving, not with a bang, but with the absence of power. Everything modern life depended on, communication, transportation, medicine, food production, disappears in an instant, and 20 minutes later, the world is changed forever. It's not a storm, it's not an attack, it's not a gradual decay. It's the blackout. One moment, the world hums with the energy of the 21st century. The next, it's silent. People stumble into the streets. Planes crash into cities. Hospitals go dark. Water stops flowing. Phones are dead. And the panic begins. But panic gives way to something worse. Stillness. Because it doesn't come back. Not in a day. Not in a week. Not ever. The show picks up 15 years later. The blackout has become myth. The world has settled into something ancient. America is no longer a country. It's a patchwork of territories ruled by militias, warlords, and new flags. The United States government is gone. Its institutions are forgotten or twisted into fragments. People live in small communities, growing their own food, carrying swords and crossbows, traveling on foot or horseback. Cities are hollowed-out relics, overgrown with vines, filled with rusted cars and silent machines. Technology is remembered like magic. The younger generation doesn't know what the old world felt like. They've never seen a computer turn on, never heard music through headphones, never used a phone. The older generation clings to memories of television, of electricity, of warm showers and cold drinks. But memories don't generate power. They just remind people what they lost. The central mystery of Revolution is why it happened. Why did the power vanish? Why can't anyone bring it back? As the characters search for answers, they begin to realize the blackout wasn't natural. It was created, engineered, and someone still holds the key. But the key isn't just about turning the lights back on. It's about power, the kind that rules nations, not just generators. The world that rose after the blackout is brutal. The Monroe Republic, one of the dominant factions, rules with an iron fist. Its soldiers wear uniforms. Its leader, Sebastian Monroe, speaks of order, control, and rebuilding. But his version of rebuilding looks a lot like dictatorship. The militia conscripts children, executes dissenters, and uses fear to maintain control. Other regions are no better. The Georgia Federation, the Plains Nation, the Wastelands, each has its own rules, its own warlords, its own currencies of power. Survival in this world means learning to live without the things people once considered essential. It means trading bullets like gold, fixing things with wire and instinct, relying on knowledge passed down instead of Googled. It also means learning who you can trust and who you can't. Alliances shift, secrets kill, and somewhere, always, someone is trying to bring the old world back. But revolution isn't just about the collapse, it's about how people adapt to it. Some try to rebuild what was lost, some try to remake the world in their own image, others just want to survive another day. Families are torn apart, reunited, tested, friendships are formed in fire. And the question keeps rising, if the power came back, would it fix anything, or just restart the same cycle all over again? The landscape is hauntingly beautiful. Nature has taken back the earth. Highways are cracked and overgrown. Skyscrapers stand empty, like tombstones of another age. Schools and homes sit in silence, their electronics useless, their walls covered in moss. Civilization didn't burn, it was abandoned. And in that vacuum, something raw took its place. Weapons changed too. Guns still exist, but bullets are rare, so people use blades, crossbows, clubs. Combat is intimate and desperate. It feels less like war, and more like survival. And behind every skirmish is the shadow of the blackout, always present, always mysterious. At the heart of the story is family. Charlie Matheson, a young woman who grew up in the post-blackout world, becomes the lens through which we see this new society. Her father once knew the secret behind the blackout. Her uncle, Miles, used to be a general in the Monroe Republic. Their relationships, strained and complex, drive the emotional core of the journey. It's not just about finding answers, it's about finding each other in a world that no longer remembers who they were. The blackout becomes a symbol, not just of technological failure, but of moral ambiguity. With the lights off, people change. Some become monsters, others become protectors, and some become both. The line between good and evil blurs when the world no longer runs on rules but on desperation. As secrets unfold, the characters learn that restoring power might not bring peace, it might bring war. The technology that caused the blackout still exists, and those who control it could control the world. The apocalypse didn't end civilization, it reset it. And now, the struggle is not to survive, but to decide what kind of world should rise from the ashes. Revolution explores the cost of dependency. What happens when everything we rely on disappears in an instant? It shows that technology, while powerful, is fragile, that society can collapse, not through fire or plague, but through silence, that the end of the world might come not with a bang, but with a quiet flicker, and then nothing. But it also shows resilience, communities that farm, children that laugh, people who fight not just for power, but for something better, for the idea that even in darkness, there can still be light. The bunkers of Metro 2033 exist in a world where the surface is no longer home to humanity, where the ruins of the old world lie buried beneath the weight of radiation and death. The sky is empty, the cities are graves, and the air itself is poison. Those who remain have retreated underground into the tunnels and stations of the Moscow Metro, where the last remnants of civilization struggle to survive in a world that no longer wants them. The bunkers were not meant to be homes, not meant to be the final refuge of humanity, but they have become just that, a network of tunnels that now serve as the last line between survival and extinction. The stations have become settlements, each one its own fragile society, clinging to life beneath the surface. Some are fortified strongholds, guarded by men with rifles and gas masks, their inhabitants trained to fight off the dangers that lurk in the dark. Others are barely more than ruins, filled with the desperate and the dying, waiting for the day when the last of their food runs out, when the power flickers for the final time, when the darkness finally swallows them whole. Each station has its own rules, its own way of surviving. Some are ruled by traders, where bullets have become currency, where the exchange of supplies is the only thing that keeps the settlement from falling apart. Others are ruled by ideology, where old-world beliefs have been reforged in the fires of desperation. The Red Line clings to the remnants of communism, its leaders speaking of equality, of revolution, even as they tighten their grip on those who live under their rule. The Fourth Reich holds onto fascism, preaching purity and order in a world that has been reduced to chaos. Hansa thrives on trade and commerce, a network of stations bound together by necessity rather than loyalty. The Police is the last beacon of knowledge, a place where books are still read, where scientists and scholars attempt to understand what little remains of the world. The tunnels between the stations are dangerous, filled with shadows that move, with sounds that do not belong to anything human. The surface is worse. The old world is a wasteland, its buildings shattered, its streets covered in ash and ice. The air is thick with radiation, toxic to anything that breathes without a filter. The mutants roam freely, twisted remnants of creatures that once lived in harmony with the world, now transformed into horrors that hunt without mercy. To step outside is to invite death, not just from the creatures that stalk the ruins, but from the cold, from the radiation, from the sheer emptiness that now stretches where cities once stood. The people of the Metro do not dream of reclaiming the surface. They do not speak of rebuilding. They do not look to the future. They only survive. Each day is another battle, against hunger, against sickness, against the things that move in the dark. The Metro is their home now, their entire world, the only thing they have ever known. The children have never seen the sun, never walked through the open air, never felt the warmth of daylight on their skin. The stories of the surface are just that, stories spoken in hushed tones by those old enough to remember. The dangers of the Metro are not just the mutants, not just the radiation, not just the crumbling tunnels that threaten to collapse at any moment. The greatest threat is other people, the station's war with one another, old rivalries flaring up in the dim light of the underground. The Red Line and the Fourth Reich are locked in an endless struggle, their soldiers fighting battles in the tunnels, ambushing supply trains, executing prisoners in the name of ideologies that no longer matter. Bandits roam the tunnels, preying on those who travel alone, taking what they need, leaving nothing behind but bodies and empty shells. There are places in the Metro that no one speaks of, places where the darkness is thicker, where the air hums with something unnatural. Some say the Metro itself is alive, that it remembers what was lost, that it whispers to those who dare to listen. There are voices in the tunnels, sounds that do not belong, shadows that move when no one is there. Some believe it is the spirits of the dead, those who were lost when the bombs fell, trapped in the ruins of a world that will never be rebuilt. Others believe it is something else, something older, something deeper, something that has always been there, waiting beneath the surface for the right moment to rise. The Metro is not a home. It is a tomb that has not yet been sealed. The people live on borrowed time, their resources dwindling, their numbers shrinking, their hope fading with each passing year. They know that the surface is uninhabitable, that the old world is gone, that nothing waits for them beyond the tunnels. And yet, some still go up, some still venture into the ruins, searching for supplies, for answers, for something beyond the endless darkness of the Metro. Some never return, others come back changed, speaking of things they saw in the ruins, things that should not exist, things that no human should ever witness. The Metro is a place of survival, but it is also a place of waiting, waiting for the day when the food runs out, waiting for the day when the last generator fails, waiting for the day when the tunnels collapse, when the last light flickers out, when the Metro finally falls silent. The people do not speak of this, but they know it is coming. They know that they are not meant to last forever. And yet, despite everything, they continue. They fight, they trade, they protect what little they have left. They tell stories, they sing songs, they raise children who will never know what the world was before. They hold on to the idea that as long as they keep going, as long as they endure, they have not yet lost. They do not know if there is a future beyond the Metro, but they know that giving up is not an option. The Metro is not a life, it is an existence, a waiting game against inevitability. The people have adapted, they have learned to navigate the darkness, to live in the ruins of the past, but they do not belong here. The Metro is not their world, it is their prison, and they are simply waiting for the day when the last door finally closes. The surface remains, silent and untouched, its buildings crumbling, its streets empty. It waits, just as the Metro waits. It waits for the day when the last remnants of humanity fade away, when the last bunker falls dark, when the last survivor takes their final breath, and then, at last, the Metro will be empty. The tunnels will fall silent, and the world will move on, with or without them. Avengers Endgame, post-snap world. A post-apocalyptic landscape hidden beneath the surface of one of the most recognizable superhero franchises in the world. This world emerges in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically in the wake of Avengers, Infinity War, and fully revealed in Avengers Endgame. Unlike most apocalypses, there is no fire, no cities crumbling to dust in war, no virus or machine uprising. It is quieter, more surreal. A single act, done in an instant, changes everything. Half of all life in the universe vanishes with a snap. The world doesn't burn, it decays. 5 years pass after Thanos' snap. The event known as the decimation, or more commonly the blip, has turned Earth into a planet of ghosts. There are no zombies, no radioactive storms, but the world is undeniably broken. Empty neighborhoods, silent stadiums, rows of abandoned cars. The infrastructure remains, but the people are gone. The ones left behind are not rebuilding, they are mourning. In New York, the Statue of Liberty still stands, but at its base are rows of names etched into black stone, people lost in the snap. Support groups form in community centers. Strangers gather to talk, not to heal, but to keep from falling completely apart. One man talks about a date he went on. The other person cried before dessert. Everyone is trying to live as if things are normal, but nothing feels normal anymore. Nature starts to reclaim the cities. Whales are spotted swimming in the Hudson River. Without as many ships and pollution, the water is cleaner. The skies are quieter. Planes are no longer filling the air. There's less traffic, less noise. The earth is breathing again, but not in celebration, more like exhalation after loss. The governments of the world, once global powers with structure and order, are struggling to function. Half their populations are gone. Military forces are fractured. Supply chains collapsed. The systems were never designed to withstand this level of sudden disappearance. It isn't chaos in the traditional sense. It's inertia, a global grief that saps motivation from everything. And then there's the personal. Families torn apart with no explanation. Parents gone, children vanished, lovers left holding empty space. The trauma of not knowing whether your loved ones are alive or simply erased is constant. People don't even have bodies to bury. No wreckage to recover, just a before and after. The moment the world split, heroes, the ones who used to stand tall with shields and suits, are just as broken. Steve Rogers tries to keep people together, but his own sense of purpose is fading. The Natasha Romanoff stays at headquarters, monitoring distant threats, but there's nothing tangible to fix. Bruce Banner has merged brains with brawn, but the victory feels hollow. And Thor, once a king, has retreated into guilt and self-loathing, his godhood unable to undo what happened. Tony Stark retreats to a lakeside cabin. He builds a new life, small and quiet, with his wife and daughter. The man once known for his loud brilliance becomes a whisper in the woods. For him, the apocalypse became a paradox. It took everything, but gave him something he never thought he could have: peace. But even that peace comes with guilt. Clint Barton, once Hawkeye, responds differently. His family was taken in the snap, and with them went his hope. He becomes Ronin, a shadow moving through the world, executing those he sees as undeserving survivors. The collapse of civilization gives him a new kind of battlefield, a place where justice turns into vengeance. The world's decay mirrors his own. Even in space, the aftermath is felt. Planets lie empty. Civilizations are fractured. The ripple of the snap is not local, it's universal. The apocalypse is not a single point on a map. It is everywhere at once. It's not just half of humanity, it's half of everything. Plants, animals, ecosystems, entire species, entire cultures. But this is not a world of chaos and flames. It's a world of silence and slow rot. Stadiums still stand, but the cheers are gone. Houses are still furnished, but the owners are dust. Life has stopped in the middle of a sentence, and no one knows how to continue writing. There's no clear villain left. Thanos has disappeared into self-imposed exile. The snap was his solution, and in his eyes, it worked. The world is quieter, more balanced, fewer mouths to feed, fewer wars to fight, but the price is unbearable. The logic behind the act cannot comfort those left behind. They don't care about balance, they care about absence. Time does not heal this world, it just deepens the wounds. 5 years later, the pain is as raw as the moment it began. There is no moving on, only existing. The world keeps spinning, but it's slower, heavier. Then still somewhere beneath all of that is the flicker of resistance, a belief, however fragile, that what was lost might not be lost forever, that something can be done, not to forget, but to undo. It's a dangerous hope, a wild one, but in a world this empty hope becomes the only thing left to hold. The post-snap world in Avengers Endgame is a rare kind of apocalypse. It's not about the collapse of buildings, but the collapse of meaning. It's not survival in the face of chaos, but endurance in the face of sorrow. There is no enemy to punch, no walls to rebuild, just a planet full of people staring at photos, waiting for something, anything to feel real again. And yet, that stillness is what makes the return, when it happens, so powerful, not because everything goes back to normal, but because it proves that even in the quietest, darkest apocalypses, people still fight, still remember, still try.